Thank you very much. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to tonight's Milpitas City Council meeting here in the month of October. It is the fifth night of the month. The year is 2021. Let's go ahead and call this meeting to order. So happy to be here. And we'll go to our city clerk, Wendy Wood, for the roll call.
Councilmember Chua. Councilmember Chua is here. Councilmember Dominguez. Councilmember Dominguez is here. Councilmember Fan.
Present.
Vice Mayor Montano. Here. Mayor Tran.
Here. Thank you so much, Wendy. Next up on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand. Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you so much, everybody. And next on the agenda is the invocation. Tonight's invocation is presented by Councilmember Dominguez.
Thank you very much, Mayor. First and foremost, I want to wish all the girls from Milpitas High School who are having a game. Unfortunately, the game is still on, and so they may not be able to join us, but I look forward to having them at our next invocation opportunity. For today, I'd like to start off this invocation by reciting the prayer of the farm worker's struggle. Go ahead and repeat after me if you wish. Show me the suffering of the most miserable, so I will know my people's plight. Free me to pray for others, for you are present in every person. Help me to take responsibility for my own life, so that I can be free at last. Grant me the courage to serve others, for in service there is true life. Give me honesty and patience, so that I could work with other workers. Bring forth song and celebration, so that the Spirit will be alive among us. Let the Spirit flourish and grow, so we will never tire of the struggle. Let us remember those who have died for justice, for they have given us life. Help us love even those who hate us, so we can change the world. This is one of my favorite poems. And today, if you are not aware, there's two special occasions today. It's Do Something Nice Day, and it's also World Teachers Day. So to all of our educators out there, thank you so much for the work that you do. I know that it's been a really hard couple of years, not only for our students, but definitely every public worker or those who are giving service to other people. Stay in the fight. I know it's hard. I know that we are all doing the best that we actually can with what we have. And let us not forget that an act of kindness goes a really long way. We don't know what people are going through. And even a simple hello or a thank you could change their world. Thank you so much.
Amen. Thank you very much. Next up's presentations. We are kind of refraining from bringing a number of guests in. So I'll just go ahead and come down myself. There's no picture opportunities or anything. And I'll do a couple of the proclamations. One second here. Let me get your mic. Oh, can we pause myself there? Vice Mayor, yes.
I want to thank Councilmember Dominguez for giving us this act of kindness of giving us those little succulents. So thank you.
Thank you very much. It's a kind gesture. All righty. How's everybody doing at home streaming on YouTube or Facebook Live? For your information, we don't have anybody here in our city council chamber, but all are welcome. So thanks for tuning in wherever you're at in Milpitas or around the world. It is the presentations portion of tonight's meeting, and it's always a pleasure and honor and blessing to do these proclamations here. Let's see what's before me. Okay, great. We have two proclamations. First proclamation is Fire Prevention Week for October the 3rd through 9th. If I may say a few words, every year Americans observe Fire Prevention Week during this first week of October. This year is scheduled from, as previously stated, October 3rd to the 9th, 2021, with the theme, here we go, this year's theme, Learn the Sounds of Fire Safety. The purpose of Fire Prevention Week is to educate us about the simple but important things we can do, keeping ourselves and around us safe from fire everywhere, especially at home. Fire departments nationwide responded to over 300,000 home fires that caused nearly 3,000 civilian deaths in the year 2019, pre-COVID. Right now, the state of California has been experiencing massive fire complexes. Yep, those big wildfires you see on the 10 o'clock news. Hopefully, we'll be able to catch it tonight. With the pandemic still with us, it gets tougher handling the fire suppression as well as assisting hundreds of evacuees. Milpitas first responders are dedicated to reducing the occurrence of home fires and associated injuries through education and prevention. To achieve this, we need everyone's help and diligence to be careful and prepared if a fire occurs at your home. Therefore, I, Mayor Rich Tran, on behalf of the great City Council, do hereby proclaim the period of October 3rd through 9th of this year as Fire Prevention Week here in the land of cornfields. And the next proclamation is for Domestic Violence Awareness Month. Certainly an issue that we have been recognizing and bringing awareness to for many years. October was first declared as National Domestic Violence Awareness Month in 1989. Since then, October has been a time to acknowledge domestic violence survivors and be a voice for its victims. Domestic violence is a serious crime that affects people of all races, ages, gender, religion, and socioeconomic income levels. During the COVID-19 pandemic, domestic violence has become a pandemic within a pandemic, with many victims facing the added pressures of increased economic insecurity, increased time in isolation with their abusers, and limited contact with their support network. During Domestic Violence Awareness Month, we honor the tremendous dedication of advocates and service providers, honor the courage and resilience of survivors, and recommit ourselves to standing with them for safety, dignity, and justice. Therefore, I, Mayor Rich Tran, on behalf of the great Milpitas City Council, do hereby proclaim the month of October as Domestic Violence Awareness Month here in the land of cornfields, and urge the citizens of Milpitas to work together to eliminate domestic violence from our community. I want to thank our city clerk for preparing these presentations per usual. Thank you very much. Next up on the agenda, thanks for tuning in, folks. If it's another meeting that you've attended, you know the drill. We have a city council meeting agenda that's posted not just outside of City Hall, but also on the internet, the City of Milpitas website. If you're new to our meeting, please join us with the agenda, maybe from your fingertips, wherever you may be, whatever platform you may be on. The City of Milpitas website, look up city council meeting agenda for tonight. And you can click on that and download the PDF of our agenda. That way you can further be in tune with tonight's business. Next up on the agenda is the public forum. Tonight's public forum, 1 minute, looking at our attendees here in the chamber. We do have Mr. Montemayor here. Come on up. Public forum, 1 minute. We got Mr. Montemayor, our great city commissioner. We also have attendees on Zoom. I see you all. Thanks for being here with us. Mr. Montemayor.
Hi, good evening. I try to be here, but the Mr. Buddy sent invocation. But anyway, you're here in person, 4 of you, and one at home. We're grateful. Mayor, city council members, manager and staff. Oh yeah, your presentations are great. It could be not just week for the fire prevention. It could be months. The domestic violence also. They're all, yeah. We should be aware of this, yeah. And one thing that I want to emphasize also is if we can sing the national anthem also, since we are slow or low, maybe, then we could sing the Star Spangled Banner. And then one of my have in mind is, I don't know if Walmart will get mad at me if I say we should have a Costco around also. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. I'll look to the Zoom platform. I do see a number of attendees that are joining us tonight. I want to give you a shout out. If you're on the Zoom and you're an attendee and I see your name and you may know me, then I want to give you a shout out. And if you'd like to do a comment here in the public forum, feel free to raise your virtual hand. Pretty neat thing, virtual hand. If not, I want to move on with tonight's agenda. We got a number of great items tonight, and that's it with the public forum. Thank you very much. Moving on here to announcements and future agenda items. And as you all know, it's our city manager, Steve McHarris.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Tran, members of the City Council. I have two brief announcements for you this evening. First, I'm pleased to announce that the city will be hosting our 5th annual Manufacturing Day event. The virtual event is a partnership with the Milpitas Unified School District that introduces students to exciting careers in technology and advanced manufacturing. This year, we will be including pathways for more women in the industry. The event is this Thursday, October 7th, from 11 to 12:15, and anyone can register through the city's website. The second item I have is the City of Milpitas continues to collaborate with the Santa Clara County Public Health by hosting another walk-up COVID-19 pop-up clinic on Wednesday, October 6th, from 4:30 to 7:30 p.m. at the Milpitas Community Center. The pop-up will have Pfizer, Moderna, and Johnson & Johnson vaccinations for the public, 12 years or older. The clinic is available for first shot, second shot, and booster shots. That concludes my announcements.
Thank you very much, Steve. I'll go next here. Just an announcement, nothing else. I want to congratulate our city manager, Steve McHarris, for getting a 1-year extension on his contract. I'm very thankful and blessed, and I know many of our residents are, to have Steve guide us. And whether you're a part of our organization or a resident or a visitor, I do want to say very clearly to everybody that I'm so thankful for Steve's work and the stability he's brought, the excellence. We're always going to go through challenges and issues in the community, across our city and through the valley. But I know with this team, we've accomplished so much, including the COVID and recession issues. And the future is so bright here in the city of Milpitas and getting things done for our residents. So congratulations to Steve for the extension, and to our organization, really, because that speaks for every department and the director in chief. So thank you very much. I'll look to my colleagues for any announcements. Okay, first up here, we have Councilmember Chua.
Thank you, Mayor Tran. And I just want to thank Councilmember Dominguez as well for the nice cactus. This is the only plant I have in my house, to be honest with you. I can't grow anything. So anyway, another congratulations to Steve's team is the senior and recreational and social services. we had a very successful welcome back senior last Saturday. There were 200 plus seniors who came and celebrated with all of us. Thank you, and to the leadership of John. Thank you so much, and to the rest of the staff. Thank you all. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Chua. And next up here, we have the Vice Mayor, Carmen Montano.
Thank you, Mayor. First of all, thank you, Marina, for the succulent, and then also thank you, Mayor, for the dragon. I've never
The
tried
dragon
one of
fruit,
these, but
yeah.
I'm looking forward to trying it. The other announcement I wanted to make is that I attended the Korean alphabet ceremony, 158th event that they have, recognizing their emperor in the 1400s who created their alphabet. And so every year they have an annual event at the library. It was very, very well attended with students. It was inspiring. And then the other announcement I have is that, I'm a liaison to the Parks and Recreation Commission. And I don't know if you're aware, but they have they have taken on 7 tasks. The historical and cultural preservation, that's one of their tasks, parks, recreation, activities, the community garden, the bicycle. We no longer have a bicycle commission, so they took it on. And also the sister cities, which is a huge endeavor in itself. And so I would like to recommend to the mayor if we can increase the commission members to right now they have 7 to 9, so that way they can stretch out or even out the task, because they have a lot of tasks at hand. So they're stretched really thin. So I would like to make that recommendation if you can have staff look into it.
That's great. Thank you. Yes, yes.
And that's it. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Vice Mayor. Next up, we have Councilmember Dominguez.
Thank you very much, Mayor, for the time. First, I would like to invite our community to a domestic violence awareness walk that is going to be held, co-hosted by Councilmember Magdalena Carrasco, who is the jump skip over in San Jose. It will take place on October 8th at 5:30. This is a regional event, so Milpitas is welcome. There will be music, live performances, or a resource fair for all. And so we will make sure to post that information on our Facebook page. There is a registration. The first 100 people will get a free shirt. And so that is my public announcement. We are an announcement. So I do have a request for the council. I know that this is long-term, it's far away, but I would like to prepare. And so I would like to kindly ask this council if you could please consider putting the lights out in purple in solidarity for domestic violence survivors on next year's Domestic Violence Awareness Month. I do understand that we couldn't do that because maybe there's a budget restriction, but I would like this council to have that discussion in order for us to prepare for next year. That is one of the requests. The second, I'm not too sure if you want to respond to that, Mayor.
Oh, that's great. Maybe we'll have the city manager bring back the lighting of City Hall policy or schedule, and that way we can manage the lighting across every day of every month. I think that's a good conversation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mayor. The second request that I would like to ask this council is we have all been talking about the revitalization for Main Street. And so in doing some research, we have found some outdated policies where, unfortunately, it doesn't allow the businesses to have a music permit for them to host live music. Currently, our businesses have shared not only with our office, but I believe with the entire council, that it's really expensive and it's a long process to get this music permit. So what I would like to have a conversation and bring back to this council for a discussion and approval of a universal music ordinance for Main Street. I can't talk more, so I don't want to violate. So at this point, I would like to kindly request the council to add this to the list.
I just want, is it indoors or outdoors? I'm not sure.
It would be outdoors.
Okay, yeah, we've already brought forward the ordinance. The vice mayor has already brought forward the to discuss the ordinance for outdoor music citywide, and so that would be included.
Is that on the list?
Yes, it is. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mayor. I'm glad that that's included. So in that case, I'll have one more request. My next request is also with Main Street Revitalization. We have a parcel that's right underneath the freeway, and it's really costly. The cost could be up to $10,000 for a nonprofit to have an event such as the Dobo event that happens there traditionally. What we would like to request for a conversation and an adoption of a universal fee waiver for nonprofits who adopt a outline for their events. Again, I will talk a little bit more about this later on. I think it's really important for our nonprofits to come in and have fee waivers in order for them to do events. So I would like this council to have a conversation and move direction to adopt a universal nonprofit fee waiver for special events in this parcel on Main Street.
Is this a public government-owned parcel or a private space? We do have waivers here at the city. I'm not sure which parcel you're referring to.
It's the one next to Tequila Shots, and currently it is owned by the city, and currently the cost could start at about $10,000. We did check the policy and there is no current policy.
Okay, city property, absolutely. We'll check it out. Yeah, if that is, okay, great. Fantastic. Yeah, we'll talk about it. We'll agendize it. I don't think it's a priority. Yeah, I'll have staff look into it. Maybe, not sure if it goes to a commission, but is there a priority for this item?
I would say yes, if we want to revitalize Main Street by the summer. I think the businesses there are eager to have traffic. And so it would be great if we could have this in place by, or have at least a conversation by December, so we could be ready to go by 2022.
Okay, great. Yeah, we'll send it to the city manager's office for further review. Fantastic.
Thank you. My next request is for, and maybe Vice Mayor, I was looking, maybe you could give us some direction. I know you're part of the parks, and so I definitely wanted to put this in, hopefully in your committee. There is a park on North Park, Victoria. It's not a park, it's a little parcel. Historically, it was a rose garden that was implemented in the 1960s, from what I hear. We have had a set of volunteers out there who have cleared the weeds, which were about 12 feet high. And we would like to ask this council to memorialize that piece of land or parcel as a memorial for our seniors in the city of Milpitas and commemorate those who started that rose garden. It would be great if we could have a plaque with names of those that started the rose garden and maybe call it the Garden of Hope for Milpitas. I thank you for your kind consideration to this request.
Thank you very much. Yeah, we'll send that to the city manager's office for further review, identify the parcel owner, and then we'll look at some cost fiscal impact. Great. Okay. Any further requests?
At this time, that concludes my request. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next up, we have Councilmember Fan.
Thank you. So I have two requests. The first one, in my conversation with business owners, they've reported an increase of illegal dumping over the years. It's a problem that I've experienced with them in the 5.5 years that I've been here. I'm not quite sure what the remedy is, but I'd love for staff to take a look a closer look at the issue and see if there's anything that we can do to address the situation, if it requires additional ordinances, signage, or perhaps just increasing the penalties. That's my first request. For
next one.
Thank you. And the second one, it pertains to certain businesses, indoor businesses and all indoor events for us to require proof of vaccination. This is similar to the ordinance that San Francisco, the city and county of San Francisco has in place. And this is in anticipation of the holiday season, really to protect our residents from potential exposure. And I bring this up at this moment because it should give us enough time to prepare ahead.
Absolutely. I like that. What's the, if I may ask you, Councilmember Fan, the
Sure.
capacity number that you're looking to require for events?
Sure. I think in terms of events itself, for events with 1,000 people or more to provide proof of vaccination. And I think that's very reasonable. But in addition to that, restaurants, bars, clubs, gyms is something to consider. You know, I think we can hash out some of the specifics if that item comes before us, and have a conversation about that. But you know, there's a lot of possibilities there. I do want to make it broad enough so that we can have that conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. I like the 1,000 person event vaccination requirement. I like that a lot, 100%. I would say I will have we'll have a discussion about
Sure.
vaccination requirements for private businesses. I think we've seen that struck down up in Sacramento, and I'd hate to make any decision that would negatively impact the comeback of many of our businesses, especially the small businesses. But we can have the discussion.
Absolutely.
I support
Thank you.
that. Thank you.
I appreciate that.
Okay, great. Awesome. I love all the new ideas. Keep them coming. I love supporting good ideas. All right, if there's no further announcements or future agenda items, let's go ahead, folks, and keep pushing forward. Next up is the announcement of conflict of interest and campaign contributions. We'll go to our city attorney,
Thank you,
Christopher
Mayor Tran.
Diaz.
Thanks, Mayor Tran. Just wanted to ask the council the standard questions. The first is ask the mayor and council to please disclose any financial or personal conflict of interest related to any of the items on tonight's agenda. And we'll start with Councilmember Chua.
None.
Thank you. Councilmember Dominguez.
None.
Thank you. Councilmember Fan.
None.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Montano
None.
and Mayor Tran.
Myself is a none.
Perfect. Thank you. And then I'd also ask the mayor and council to please disclose any campaign contributions of $100 or more received within the last 12 months from any parties entering into a contract with the city on tonight's agenda. We'll start with Councilmember Chua.
I'm sorry,
None.
Councilmember Cho. Good microphone, thanks.
Thank you, Councilmember Chua. Councilmember Dominguez.
None.
Thank you, Councilmember Fan.
None.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Montano.
None.
Thank you, and Mayor Tran.
And myself is none.
Thank you. Let the record reflect none to both questions. And Mayor, if you'd like, I'd go ahead and read the council code of conduct.
Yes, please.
Be respectful and courteous. Words, tone, and body language matter. Model civility. Avoid surprises. Praise publicly and criticize privately. Focus on the issue, not the person. Refrain from using electronic devices while on the council dais. Disclose conflicts of interest and affiliations related to agenda items. Separate governing from campaigning. The council speaks with one voice after making policy on issues. Respect the line between policy and administration. And then finally, the council will hold one another accountable to comply with this code of conduct. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chris. We appreciate you. All right, next up is the approval of agenda. Let me take a look here. I really love tonight's agenda. Thank you to our city manager's office and all those that contributed. Absolutely every department director. I mean, tonight is the concert of all our departments in the city, every city council meeting. I want to go to C8. I want to move C8, postpone that to, we'll call it a future city council meeting agenda due to sort of parties within the item, not us here in Milpitas, but few parties that we appreciate so much that they're unable to sort of have all the 100% of the pieces there tonight, but we're gonna go ahead and square that away pretty soon. But I'll go ahead and move to postpone item number 8, which is on consent, to a future agenda. And there's so many good items. That's it for my agenda requests. And I'll go to my colleagues. Next up, Councilmember Dominguez.
Thank you so much, Mayor. I just have a question on C5 since it's gonna go on consent. I know that in previous years, you have allowed each one of us to appoint a member to the Planning Commission. I have been informed that the person that I appointed, thanks to your request, will be unfortunately moving from Milpitas. Therefore, there is going to be a Planning Commission seat available. And so I don't see that on this list, and I know that he has given notice. So I know the Planning Commission is really important, and I would like to make sure that there's enough time frame and an equitable process to select the next candidate. And I hope that I get to keep the ability to appoint for that position. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I'll think about it. It's not on tonight's agenda. All right, any further requests? And we'll go to Councilmember Chua.
Move to approve.
And we have the motion to approve tonight's agenda by Councilmember Chua with the postponement of item number 8. I'll go ahead and second that motion. All in favor, Councilmember Chua. Let me get your microphone. Yes.
Yes, aye.
Thank you very much. Next up, we have Councilmember Dominguez.
Aye.
Okay, great. And then we'll go to Councilmember Fan.
Aye.
And then next up is Vice Mayor Montano.
Yes, I'd like this. We have a subcommittee meeting, transportation subcommittee meeting this Friday, and I'd like for them to bring this item up to us just to give us a synopsis.
Okay, great. Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm sure we can add that.
So yes, I agree.
Great. Thank you very much. And myself as an aye, the agenda is approved. That's a kind request, Vice Mayor. We can do that. I think so. Okay, great. All right. That's the approval agenda. Moving on to consent calendar. I have no requests. I'm looking for any requests by my colleagues on the dais or the dais in the cloud. Consent calendar. I move to approve the consent calendar. Need a second. We have the Vice Mayor for the second. And we're going down the line here. Councilmember Chua.
Aye.
Councilmember Dominguez.
Aye.
Councilmember Fan.
Aye.
And then next up, we're going to Vice Mayor Montano.
Aye.
And myself as an aye. That's the consent calendar, folks. We're moving along. Thank you, everybody. And that brings us to community development, item number 11. Let's receive a status update on the Main Street Revitalization Initiative and provide direction to staff on the American Rescue Plan Act funding for Main Street revitalization. And I see here we have our Assistant City Manager. Hello there, Ashwini Kantak. How are you?
Good, Mayor. How are you?
Great. Thank you for asking.
Okay.
Take it away.
Great. So I'll get started if we can just have the presentation brought up, please. So good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Council members. Ashwini Kantak, Assistant City Manager. I'm joined by Walter Rossman, our Deputy City Manager, as well as several members of our executive team, since this revitalization initiative involves work by many departments. And really excited to be here today to share what we've been doing since May when we talked to you about this, as well as what we have planned for the next several months. Our multi-departmental team meets on a regular basis, and as you will hear through the presentation, we have a lot going on to support the near-term as well as long-term revitalization of this very important area of Milpitas. Next slide, please. And so just brief background, as you're all well aware, Main Street was the historic downtown of Milpitas and a key connection between San Jose and Oakland. An assessment done in 2011 of Milpitas's historic resources actually identified 14 structures with historic significance on Main Street. And these structures range from a private residence to others providing community and business services, such as a school, church, a doctor's office, a store, a bar, and a salon. And these were built when Milpitas was a township, and they predate the incorporation of the city in 1954, with some of them dating back to the 19th century. And the City Council has expressed an interest in leveraging the history and culture of Main Street and revitalizing the area as a vibrant downtown. So we brought a plan to Council on April 20th and again on May 11th of this year as part of the budget discussions. And on May 11th, City Council provided direction to staff to move forward on certain elements related to the revitalization of Main Street. Costs were estimated at $165,000, with funding coming from multiple sources, including Community Benefit Fund, the CIP, public art, donations and sponsorships, as well as potential recreation fees. And since then, through the discussions on the American Rescue Plan Act, or ARPA funding, an additional $500,000 has been allocated for this revitalization effort. On September 10th, we presented an update on Main Street Revitalization Initiative to the newly formed Ad Hoc City Council Main Street Revitalization Subcommittee. We provided an update of all the things you're going to hear today and received some input from the committee members. So Council Member Chua asked staff to coordinate with business owners on decorations that would align with the Holiday Magic theme. And Vice Mayor Montano expressed an interest in future discussions about longer-term projects on Main Street, which we will do. And this is an ad hoc subcommittee, so there's no set meeting schedule. Next slide, please. So here's a quick summary of the various revitalization elements staff has been working on. So Holiday Magic on Main Street planned for December of this year, and we're really excited about these community events. And Renee Lawrenson, our Recreation and Community Services Director, will be covering this in much more detail. Ongoing activation of Main Street, we will be looking for opportunities to continue this activation through a variety of activities such as farmers markets, food trucks, music, and art installations, including a mural program, and using the lessons learned from the Holiday Magic events to help us plan these activities in 2022. In terms of long-term planning, you will hear from Ned Thomas, our planning director, who will be presenting information on community conversations about Main Street that occurred between April and June of this year. We received some great input from the community, and the key themes identified through these conversations will really help us as we kick off the Gateway Main Street specific plan process. And then economic vitality, obviously a key driver for this whole effort is economic vitality. And so Alex Andrade, our Economic Development Director, will be presenting on some key elements of our strategy to spur economic development on Main Street, including a storefront grant improvement program and a potential future business improvement district. And with that, I will turn it over to Renee Lawrenson to walk you through the next few slides. Thank you.
Thank you, Ashwini, and good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and City Council members. So I'll be going over the Holiday Magic event in more detail with you. I'm going to touch on all of the bullets on this slide and then go into depth on a couple of them. So as you've probably heard before, Holiday Magic is on Main Street. It is running from December 4th through December 19th. So that's 16 days of events down at Main Street. We have a synthetic ice rink, which is the major attraction. That's a 70-foot by 24-foot ice rink that patrons will be able to come and participate and have a great time. There'll be music, restaurants, and food trucks. We'll have activities for young and adults, entertainment, movies, lots of activities, community trees and snow globes as decorations along Main Street and in the event area. There'll be photo opportunities, including Santa for both your family, your two-legged or your four-legged children. We will have street banners, lights on the street trees and palm trees in some of the medians. We are continuing to look for donations and sponsorships and revenue from this event to help pay for the cost of it. As Ashwini mentioned before, we have murals planned for temporary and moving murals, as well as murals to help revitalize and beautify the area during the event. It's a great way to activate the space and promote community participation. And then lastly, some street closures to maximize the event area on Main Street and also promote pedestrian traffic going up and down Main Street, and hopefully patronizing many of the businesses that are on Main Street. Next slide. So this is your Holiday Magic logo. This was staff created, and you will see this throughout the event marketing, all of the promotions. You'll see it on the street banners and in the event itself, along with the themes of the colors running through the event. So we're excited about this logo and how magical it looks. Next slide. So your event calendar. So like I mentioned, the event kicks off on Saturday, December 4th. You'll see on the calendar, the magic begins on the weekend, Saturday and Sunday. The event theme is magic itself. And we understand that during the week, since it's running almost 3 weeks, that weekdays might be less people might attend because there's work and school and things like that going on. So we have special themed nights to help attract the public and get them out to Main Street. It's also a great way to activate the businesses in Milpitas to participate and highlight the services that are in town. So you'll see special nights like stocking stuffers. We have an ugly sweater party night. I mentioned four-legged children. We have a Santa Paws night where you can bring your pets, and there's information and activities for everyone, including your pets. We want to celebrate our culture and heritage here in Milpitas. And so we have Global Holidays Night, where we're going to have food and decorations and music and performances celebrating many of the cultures of the residents that live here in Milpitas. We have date night for the adults. We have Silver Bells Nostalgia Night for our mature adults. We have Characters on Ice, where people can dress up. And through this planning process, I learned that one of my staff used to be an ice dancer. So we're going to put him to work out on the ice so kids can get excited about seeing some of their favorite characters out there. Tons of toys night supporting giveaways and toy drives for those who need a little assistance over the holidays. For those that like to sing, we have Christmas karaoke. So we'll have a karaoke contest where we're hoping some of you can be judges that evening, and then reindeer games to help get our teens out and celebrate with us. So it's a jam-packed 16 full days of opportunities for Milpitas residents, businesses, and the surrounding Bay Area to come out and celebrate in Milpitas. Next slide. So I'm going to go over the event layout, and Deputy Fire Chief Albert Zamora is also here with us as well to go over some of the technical details. But what you'll see on this slide is the event layout on the weekends, which is Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays. And so in yellow, you can see the event area. It starts underneath the 237 overpass on the city-owned parking lot parcel. We have to the east, we have Windsor Courts. And then going north, we have event areas going all the way up the sidewalks to Weller in front of the public library. So you'll see within the yellow, the orange or red rectangle, that is our skating rink. Within that parking lot and the Tequila Shots parking lot as well, that's where we will have event activities, sponsorship booths, places to purchase your skates and get ready to go and skate on the skating rink. In Windsor Court, we'll have the new Recreation and Community Services City Milpitas mobile stage set up. That's where we'll have music and entertainment. Behind the skating rink along Windsor, facing the parking lot, that's where we will have the food trucks and restaurant booths. And then moving up North Main Street, we will have buskers, which are street performers, and we will have more activity tables, carolers standing on the old grammar school steps, and different opportunities for people to both participate and watch entertainment along that North Main Street corridor. We, as I said before, want to promote the ability for pedestrians to enjoy the event and walk up and down Main Street. And so to protect the pedestrian traffic and maximize the event space, we are going to close North Main Street from Saraway on up to allow for some detouring. And I'm going to let Chief Zamora talk a little bit about that, Chief, if you want to hop on.
Sure. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Madam Vice Mayor, and honorable members of the council. Albert Zamora, Deputy Chief Fire Marshal. As Renee said, that because of the event and what is involved in terms of multiple activities, it was very important to ensure safety, but at the same time provide the maximum area of real estate, if you will, for patrons to go ahead and attend. This being the weekend plan, if you will, what we've done is we combine the event as well as the closure plan. I think it's very important so that we section off the areas that the traffic can utilize, but at the same time allow the usage of that by the attendees. The most important thing here is that we have access to the merchants. So as we close the street from, say, Sarah all the way up to, I believe it's Weller, that anywhere we have merchants that will be typically open on the weekends, they will not be compromised, nor will they be inaccessible. They will be available for anyone that may want to go there to go ahead and patron their store. That being said, there's also going to be the weekday, which then I will segue back to Renee.
Thanks. And next slide, please. So you'll notice the event layout on the weekdays is smaller. We do anticipate, like I mentioned before, that we may have less of a crowd on the weekdays due to work and school the next day. So the event area is primarily in those parking lots under 237, as well as Windsor right behind to the east of the parking lot. So on those days, we'll still have the skating rink. There'll be opportunities for groups to come out and field trips, Girl Scout, Boy Scout troops, any holiday camps that are operating in the area. They'll be able to come out during the day as well. We will still have all the food trucks and opportunities on Windsor, as well as movies and things like that playing in that nice, more compact event area. So we'll still close Windsor Street on the weekdays, but that will be after business hours. So we're not impeding on those businesses. Albert, did you have anything to add to that?
Sure, Renee. So compared to the previous plan, because this is going to be intended a little bit less than you would have in the weekends, obviously we compartmentalize the event area and then allow some more traffic as well as business to occur for the merchant. So again, this is more of a distilled version of what you would have typically after hours from 4 to 9. And then of course on the weekends, we'll have the high impact areas available for those because of the peak attendance in the report.
Thank you, Chief. All right, next slide. So we're going to move on to the street banners. So in the event area, it's about 30 poles between Weller and Carlo. And so what you're looking at here is a mock-up of one side of our Holiday Magic street banners. And this is our poles, actually, so you can see what it'll look like. So the front side of every banner will have the Holiday Magic on Main Street, Milpitas, California on it. And then on the back side, next slide, please. There'll be 3 different messages. They will alternate. So whichever way you're traveling down Main Street, you'll see both Holiday Magic as well as the message from the city of Milpitas to those that are driving by. So we have joy, peace, love, happy holidays, and celebrate with us. And you'll notice at the bottom is the new Milpitas mark that City Council approved just a few meetings ago, debuting on this street banner. Next slide, please. So the cost summary. So I'm going to go through this with you all. This is still estimated costs as we have about another month of planning and negotiating with our vendors and providers. The banners, the 30 poles that I just mentioned, that's about $2,000 for the street banners. The tree lights, which will go on the trees, the branches, flanking Main Street, as well as the palm trees in the median in Main Street, right in front of the library and the DeVries House. It's about $10,000. The murals and temporary art installations, that is still $12,500. That is coming from the Public Art Fund. Music and entertainment for the 16 days, we estimated about $10,000 in total. The ice rink is the $59,000. We are still working on that. We are negotiating still with the ice rink operators, as well as getting sponsors to help cover some of the accommodation requirements for the operators of the rink itself. Food trucks and restaurants, that is actually no cost to us to have the trucks and restaurants at the event. In fact, it is a revenue generating opportunity at the event. The community holiday trees and snow globes, those are at $5,600. However, those are being offered as part of the sponsorships that we're collecting. And so those are covered by the local businesses and nonprofits that are participating in the event. Decorations and miscellaneous supplies that are about a little over $16,000. For event staffing, we are estimating that we will be able to provide this event within the existing adopted budget for recreation and community services as we get closer to the event, and even as we get through the event itself, depending on the crowds and the impact on the streets. We may need additional staffing, but we would come for that fiscal ask later to City Council in the calendar year. Equipment and on-site services are a little over $75,000, and advertising and print for the event, we're looking about $9,000 for a total of $200,000 for the 16 days. Next slide. So donations and sponsorships. So I'm happy to be able to announce that we have just about $60,000 in donations and in-kind sponsorships for the event as of today. Staff is still working diligently on getting more, and we're just going to keep going. Very proud to say that we have Amazon as our title sponsor. We also have Bayview Golf, City Ventures, Embassy Suites, HMH, Legoland, LPMD Architects, Milpitas Charity Bingo, M Group, McCarthy Ranch, Roland Land Company, Tequila Shots, and Toll Brothers have all made commitments so far to be partners of Holiday Magic on Main Street. And we're very happy to have them with us and counting. So we're still working on some more, and we'll be doing that through the rest of this month. Some other successes just in our promotions and working with nonprofits and other clubs and businesses around town as we're putting this event together. The community group and businesses, the participation has been very positive. We've gotten interest from almost every single person we've talked to. They're very thankful and happy to see that there is an event happening in Milpitas again after the break during COVID. We've launched the first muralist RFQ, which was request for qualifications, for the Main Street mural. So we're very excited to be getting those qualifications back from artists, which we started to immediately get after we put it out a couple of weeks ago. And we will be returning to City Council in November with those final designs so that you can select your final and first Main Street mural. We have been very lucky to be finding some great holiday decor. Working on the banners has been a true city department group effort, putting those together. Our globes and community trees, we've got great participation from the businesses and nonprofits who are interested. And we have some really cool merchandise that we are planning to provide at the event and sell, including some City Milpitas holiday wrapping paper. So just fun things, fun touches that we know our residents enjoy. Next slide. So there are always some challenges with events. Costs for services and other purchases are higher than anticipated. A lot of that is due to COVID. Things take a little bit longer. Things are a little bit more expensive. Just the production of things is a little bit different this close to coming out of COVID. A lot of departments in other cities are experiencing some of those same challenges. staffing constraints. It is a long event, 16 days. It will be amazing, but it is a little bit of a constraint on our staffing, which we are working through. COVID uncertainty, we're coming out of COVID and we are in what we would call a flu season. So we're not quite sure what the Bay Area response or the residential response will be to the event. We have seen quite a favorable response to outdoor classes and programs within recreation services. So we are staying hopeful, but cautious that there might be some concerns from people with COVID and going out in big groups. And then of course, any event that is held in December, we always have to think about weather contingencies and what happens if it rains, knock on wood. Hopefully it won't be too bad or it won't be any at all and we won't have any issues, but those are just some things that we work on logistics wise for events always that are outdoors in our fall and winter months. Next slide. Oh, I'm turning that over back to Ashwin. Thank you.
Actually, this Ned Thomas will be covering the next few slides. Thank you.
And pause it there for a moment. Great presentation thus far. We have a request from one of my colleagues here, Vice Mayor Montano.
So thank you, Renee, for that wonderful presentation. Can you go back to the map, the blueprint of the area that's going to be affected? It had yellow and.
You could go back, Pam, to the event layout on weekends.
Yeah, that one. Thank you.
Yeah.
I was wondering for public safety, well, where will the people park, the ones that come in their vehicle?
So this location is flanked by 2 public parking lots. So we have the Valley Medical Building right across the street, and we also have the library garage. So there will be 2 parking garages that people can use to park and then use the crosswalks to come over to the event. There also is some street parking on Main Street, and so also could safely park and then walk over.
Okay, and then they can also park in that frontage where that empty lot is, right by the north of the library, right?
Yeah, any available parking that's public, I think they'll probably take advantage of that.
Okay.
But we definitely know that we have access to the 2 garages and then any street parking.
Okay, and then we'll have police, the public safety.
Yes, this is a citywide effort. So we are working with both fire and police on all of these traffic plans and event layouts to make sure that we're offering the safest event possible.
Oh, great, that's key. That's really important. And then if you can go to the previous slide from that one of the calendar, that one. So I was looking at Santa Paws Pet Night.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what would be really cool is if you had a little pet parade. I don't know if you could fit that in there or if it's, I'm going to leave it up to staff, but I think that would be so cool for people. People love their pets.
They do.
They could dress them up in some kind of holiday attire and then have a little pet parade, just a long distance. But I think that would be so cool.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's just, I'm throwing that idea out there. It doesn't mean you have to do it. I think it would be cool. And and then also the tree lighting ceremony. I didn't see that in there.
Yeah, great question. So the tree lighting ceremony will be virtual this year. Staff will be working on holiday magic. So a lot of our efforts will be on Main Street, but we will still light all of the plaza lights and the city's holiday tree on December 1st at 7 p.m. And if you recall, the last couple of years, we've had the events virtual online with a countdown and video and message from Santa. And so we'll be doing the same thing this year as well. So people can watch the countdown from home, or if they'd like, they can go to the plaza and wait for the lights to turn on that day at 7 p.m.
And when you say the plaza, the City Hall Plaza, right?
Yeah, the Civic Center Plaza.
Same place. Okay.
Yep.
And then community Christmas trees. I was thinking the city council could sponsor a city Christmas tree. We could each pay a little stipend and have a tree. It depends on what the council wants, but I think that would be a good idea. And then for the kickoff, I was thinking we could sing "We Wish You a Merry Christmas" the console. So anyway, those are ideas that I think would be really cool if the console wishes to do that. It's really it's like we're wishing it all the the families a good holiday spirit and good holiday cheer. So that was the intention.
Thank you for that feedback.
And then going on the facades on Main Street, more. You can go on the other one. The other, keep going to you were talking about Main Street facades.
The public art, or
Yes. Well, actually, no. Can you slide? Can you roll the slide so I can see which one it was? Yeah, there you go. The long-term planning.
Yeah.
So I think that we need to spruce up like the flower pots along Main Street, in front of the businesses, even just that. I know we had a plan to do the facades, but that hasn't happened, and it's already been, I don't know what. So the long-term planning is having to put facades on the businesses, but I know that takes time. But I was thinking temporarily, just put some, make it look really nice. Put some flower pots in front of the businesses, and I'm sure that they'll water the plant. They'll water. If not, we can have some volunteers water it. So, and another thing. Speaking about volunteers, we have a volunteer database, and I guess we can also ask them to help out, right?
yeah, we do have Milpitas volunteer database, several hundred Milpitas residents from youth all the way up to seniors. And so we will be doing a call for volunteers to help out with Holiday Magic and use them as a resource.
Okay, great. So yeah, just putting some flower pots or something so that way it'll look like we're really sprucing the place up.
Okay.
Look nice. Thank you. Good job. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Vice Mayor Montano. I just want to remind each of my colleagues that we still have presentation slides, the presentation much to review here and to receive, but we will go down to each member's request at this time, but just a kind reminder that we do have more presentation ahead of us, but we'll go next to Councilmember Dominguez.
Thank you very much, Mayor. Staff, could we go back to the budget template page, please? Thank you. I just have a couple of questions, and these questions have been brought up by our community. So I'm going to go ahead and ask the question of Ms. Yan Yi. Yan Yi wants to know, why can't the city host special events in certain venues? I know that could be off topic, but this one I do think is relevant to this. So the second question is, why can't we invite local artists as non-paid gigs? People are looking to share their music and art. So I saw music and entertainment. Could you share a little bit of why that cost is $10,000? Because that's coming out of our general fund. So to Yan Yin's point, would this be an opportunity for us to contact local talent? Or I just want to understand what the cost is about, or is it more equipment? Thank you.
Yeah, that's a great question. So we are doing a mix of both paid and grassroots volunteer community group entertainment. So what music and entertainment includes is magicians. It includes any bands or music where it's more of a professional group. It also includes royalties and things like that to show the movies, and as well as just music, DJs managing karaoke night. So it's a bunch of different things, or a bunch of different types of providers, but there is a mix of both paid and then local community talent.
Okay, thank you for that answer. The other question that I have from the community is, could you please clarify the total in cash donations? Because at first, when I read the report, I believe there was not, it's the total value combined of in-kind and cash But what is the cash donation amount?
So I believe we have about $59,500, and about 40,000 of that is cash, and the rest is in kind. So that in kind, for example, are things like for use of Tequila Shots parking lot, for example. So the value of using that parking lot for the event is something that's in kind. We have Embassy Suites as our hotel sponsor. And so the in-kind cost is that of the rooms. And so that ends up taking some of the cost off of the ice rink operator accommodations that are part of their contract. Legoland, they are providing, or they're looking to provide, a really cool Milpitas specific holiday magic decoration. So that's takes some load off of our decorations budget, things like that. Does that help?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Another community question that I have is, staff, could you please share with me what is the cost to light up City Hall with Christmas lights?
The contract to light City Hall, actually our Director of Public Works, Tony Enda, I believe, is on the call, and he is the keeper of that contract.
Good evening. That price is $60,000 a year.
Thank you. So we already spent $60,000 a year, and does this come out of general fund?
That's correct. It's in our general fund budget for public works.
Okay, thank you. The other question, I'm sorry, I have so many questions. It's just, as one council member, I know that when this, and I want to say this is a great idea. I want to completely support it, but I definitely want to build a long-term sustainability plan with this ARPA fund. And so because it is agendized to give direction for the ARPA fund, these questions help me understand a little bit of what could we maybe put together. Like Vice Mayor heard the music idea that's already on the list. Maybe we could use some of that funding to give the businesses that universal music license. If you're willing to, maybe not have one of these items. I'm just trying to see how we could maximize those ARPA funding for a long-term sustainable plan, which some of your ideas are great. And so I'm really trying, how do we overlap them and also be very conscious of our general fund money during a recession, because it's a pandemic. So I definitely want to be supportive, and you have my commitment. I will sponsor a Christmas tree if that's what we need to do. But I think that it's hard to see the funding sources from general funds. So just trying to understand what this encompasses. So number 4, on the mural and temporary art installation, is that a permanent mural or is that just a temporary? And what is the location that we're looking at right now?
So there's, number 1, there's a temporary mural as part of the mural program that you approved tonight on your consent calendar. And so that is temporary in that it's not affixed to a structure, so it can actually travel. So when we get those designs back from the artists and we bring it to you, City Council, for final approval, we will bring the tour of that temporary mural project and where it will start on Main Street as part of this event. So that's 1. And then the other temporary murals that we're looking at are actually decorations in the event area that artists can do with the community to help decorate and beautify that space and really transform it from a city-owned parking lot into this, for lack of a better term, magical area of, the holiday celebration. So those will be up and out throughout the event, and then afterwards would come down because they would be event specific.
Okay. My last question is I definitely want to yield some time to my colleagues. In your experience, that plot that we're talking about to turn magical, it doesn't have to be a precise amount, but an estimated amount between staff time, setup. If somebody wanted to, for example, the Adobe folks, what is an estimated cost for a nonprofit to use that space?
So the Adobo Festival, is that?
Yeah, kind of like just an estimated cost. Mhm.
So it depends on the elements. We do have an open space parking lot fee that does start at a little over between $900 and $1,000 for a daily rental. So that's sort of the base. And then there is a special event permit that gets them going, and that's about $975. And then on top of that, what happens when we assess the special event permit is how much is it going to cost the city to support the event, and that making sure that it is safe, any utilities or any connections and things like that to make the event happen. So the permit fee can go up from there depending on the amount of city staff time that's required to support the event to make it safe. And then on top of that, the event coordinator, whoever that nonprofit group is, then they do what we do now, which is we try to get sponsors, we negotiate, for food and entertainment and get the equipment set up. So it just depends on the scope. I don't know that I could give you an exact number. It depends on the amount of days and just everything that's involved, how small or how large they want to get. So
No, thank you for that.
Yeah.
I have gotten a quote from the organizers, and they have said it could go up to 10 grand. So what I'm thinking is, how can we maximize the ARPA funding? So that's what my train of thought is for other nonprofits to do what you just said. Take staff time, lessen staff time, and maximize the measurable outcome. And so I think this is a great opportunity for us to see that and maybe reinvest some of this ARPA funding for future sustainable long-term events, which maybe could be, actually, Councilmember Chua, I'm thinking about your ADU policy, how the staff was able to do a diagram, and then if it was like built that way, it was automatically approved. So what I'm thinking is maybe we could do as a council that if there's a setup already in place that's universal for nonprofits, we could use some of this ARPA funding to waiver those permit fees for those nonprofits to do the event. So as long as they do that setup, I'm still speaking almost done, Mayor, I promise. As long as they do that setup, then they could do those events, and that would maximize the ARPA funding, because right now this event is about
Point of order. I just want to stick to the agenda item. I encourage you to bring that forward at a future meeting. It's not on the agenda. I want to make sure we're in accordance with the Brown Act. Thank you.
Per policy, this is actually agendized. It's how to use the ARPA funding and to direct staff per number 2. That's exactly what I'm doing.
Point of information, are you referring to the agendized event or a separate event?
I am referring to the recommendation number 2, which is provide direction to staff on the American Rescue Plan Act funding for Main Street revitalization. So it's agendized. So what I am suggesting is that with this ARPA funding, we as a council adopt a universal framework that is going to A, give a music permit to the businesses on Main Street, and secondly, that is going to maximize the future use of Main Street by providing a universal layout and waiving the fees using ARPA funding as a substitute in order to continue events like this long term. That is what I'm thinking right now. So when we have that discussion for for colleagues, that's kind of what I'm thinking. It's how do we maximize this $500,000 for it to happen over and over again? So thank you so much, Mayor, for the time. I appreciate my colleagues' consideration of maximizing the ARPA funding. And Vice Mayor, I'm trying to make your item on the agenda a reality, which music. I think this is an opportunity, and I hope that you take my kind recommendation as a support for your item, because let's go dance on Main Street. And I think that's an opportunity for us to use this ARPA funding and support our businesses, in addition to maybe subsidizing some of the building permits, which is also your idea. And that would be 2 agenda items out maximizing this ARPA funding. Just a thought. Thank you very much for your consideration.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. We do have, before we go to Councilmember Chua right now, we do have the presentation to receive as well to see the rest of this funding, and the council will make a decision tonight on the totality of the funding. So we appreciate your recommendation. Next up, we have Councilmember Chua.
Thank you, Mayor Tran. I'm looking at I only have a couple questions to Renee. On the cost summary, how many of these items can we reuse? I can see the banners, we can reuse the 3 lights. We can reuse that for the next few years. Several else. Can you just point it out to me, Renee?
Sure. So yes, you're right. The banners can be reused for a couple of years. If they get worn or torn, then we would replace them, of course. The tree lights and any of the decorations, if we purchase them, we store them. And so there's a possibility that decorations and miscellaneous supplies could also be reused. The community holiday trees, those can also be reused as long as they withstand the 16 days in Milpitas wind. So that's also an opportunity. Equipment and on-site services, if we're purchasing any of those things, we would reuse them. So for example, if we had any snow machines or any special decking or trellis equipment that we would purchase, then we would keep and store that and reuse that. Advertising and print, the print, unless it's not year specific, then we can reuse some of that. But you know, if it changes year to year, if it's an event that keeps happening, we would need to redo that. But there are some things that we can keep.
Yeah, I can see a few of them that we can reuse. This is our initial cost, and then we can reuse some of them, which is a good thing. And if I just would like to make a suggestion to make it generic, so you can use it for many years.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Leave the years off. Yeah. Also, you know, some of the temporary art installations, depending on what we end up with, those as well can be reused. And we do have a lot of events during the year in a normal year, and so some of this equipment we reuse. For other events as well. So we try to be resourceful where we can.
Good plan. And the next one is, I've noticed that you have food trucks, and this is the least, the very cheap one. It's $0. If not tonight, but I just want to get a feel from what's your plan in terms of selection, and also I would suggest rotational schedule, so we have different types of vendors during the 14 days. And also feedback from the community. They would love to volunteer for this holiday magic. So please let me know how they can do that so I can relay it to them. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor Tran.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Councilmember Chua. And really great agenda item. Let's carry on with the presentation. I will wait to provide any remarks. Let's go to our planning director, Ned Thomas. I believe, Ned, you're next in the queue.
Thank you, Mayor Tran. Good evening. Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. Happy to be with you again tonight, be part of this presentation. I have just 4 slides. I'll go through them really quickly. I think, as you all will remember, earlier this year, the city hosted 3 community conversations early in April, May, and June. There was one conversation per month. We had 3 different topics that we identified, as you can see here. On the right side of the screen is a overarching question that we prepared to sort of guide the discussions for each meeting. There was additional detail, additional questions, and all of those items are outlined in the attachment to your packet. Each meeting started with a presentation from staff, and then it was followed by a small group discussion, about 30 to 40 minutes. We had very good participation, on average about 30 residents, business owners per meeting. And the small group conversations were facilitated by a regional group called Catalyze SV. They had trained volunteers who hosted those meetings to ensure that we had transparency and a very fair and open conversation. It was felt that they would be better equipped to do that rather than staff. We didn't want anyone to feel uncomfortable. So we had the facilitated group discussions, and then Catalyze SV also took all of the notes that were taken at the meetings, as well as the report out at the end. They've consolidated that into a summary report, which is attached to this item on the agenda. That report will be provided to our consultants for preparation of the Gateway Plan, which is about to kick off. So this was, in a way, think of it as jump starting our community outreach for the update of the Gateway Plan. And if I could have the next slide, please. The summary report that's attached, you'll see in the executive summary that there are several themes that emerged from those small group discussions. And this is exactly the type of input from the community that we were looking for in hosting these discussions. And there's a lot here. You can look down those. I'll just highlight 1 or 2 in the interest of time. I'll just say I participated in each of the conversations, and at least one of the conversation groups at each one. We had other city staff sitting in each of the small group discussions to answer questions or provide information as needed. That was staff from planning, as well as economic development, Parks and Rec. And it was, again, very well attended and very well facilitated. So here you can see just a few themes as I look down. I recall we talked a lot about parking. Actually, it seems like that's a topic that often comes up whenever we talk about land development. We talked about the change and the evolution of Main Street as we look to add housing and additional mixed-use development there. Also talked about, we had one conversation was focused on small business and economic development. So we talked a lot about the businesses that are there. What brings, I remember that one question that generated a lot of discussion was, what brings you, the participants, what brings you downtown, and what interests you? And it was interesting, the variety of answers that we got. People will go down for all kinds of different services, and it's also used as access down to the southern portion of Milpitas. So we looked at that. As we've just been talking about with Holiday Magic on Main Street, having family-friendly entertainment, a gathering space, community events, all of these ideas were expressed. So it's great to see that we're already putting that in action with Holiday Magic, and then the community clearly wants other types of programming like this on Main Street. And then you'll see on the second bullet from the bottom, this idea of creating a central identity for Main Street. That's a gathering place that draws people to the area. And we talked quite a bit about that in the third conversation, which is around cultural and historic amenities or assets on Main Street. So there's a lot of work to be done, and we look forward to addressing all of these issues and others as we move forward with updating what's called the Midtown Plan, renaming it to the Gateway Main Street Plan, and having additional conversations with the council and with the community. Next slide, please. So just to talk a little bit, give you a preview of coming attractions on this Gateway Main Street Plan, which is the update to the Midtown Plan. So here shown in the diagram are the boundaries of the current Midtown Plan. As you can see, it covers a very large area. It stretches all the way from Montague at the south up to Calaveras and a little bit beyond the library and up. And then it goes from the 880 really over to the railroad track. So it's covering a very large area. This well, and this map also shows the transit area. And when the Midtown Plan was adopted nearly 20 years ago in 2002, it encompassed the entire area, including what became the TASP. So the amendment that you see here in 2010 was actually the creation of the transit area specific plan and taking that out of the Midtown Plan, creating two specific plans. So just again, a little bit of history and background here. And now 20 years later, we're about to update the plan, and we're looking, we're currently updating the transit area plan and the metro plan. So now as we embark on updating the Midtown Plan, we're also looking at adjusting the boundaries. And you may recall a conversation that we had in a study session way back in 2019 about adjusting the boundaries. And I won't go into excessive detail, but one of the reasons that we're suggesting that is that because this covers so much area, it seems like certainly not the only reason, but one of the reasons that maybe the Midtown Plan has not been as successful as we would like is it is trying to do too many things over too large of a territory. And also it's been very successful in the southern end. Everything below Curtis has been, the area around Able and Maine has been very well developed. We have some very nice, Alara and other developments that are there in that area, very nicely done. And then other developments further down Main Street. So we talked to you about one of the early efforts in updating the Midtown Plan will be to remove a portion of the plan and kind of reconfigure the boundaries. And the reason that we're doing that is in the update of the plan, the gateway plan can focus in on these gateway areas. If you could do the animation, just click once. Who's ever running the presentation? There you go. And then click one more time. There we go. So the gateway specific plan will then be able to focus in on these three focus areas. Again, we talked about this back in, I think it was November 2019. We have the Main Street area, which is focus, of tonight's conversation, but also the specific plan encompasses the Calaveras corridor. And we'd like to expand and take a little more focused look at the Abbott Avenue area. And so these areas are all interconnected. They form, as the name implies, a very important gateway to the city of Milpitas. They're all interrelated, but they all function at a different scale. Main Street is at more of a local level. It's a very small street. It's about a destination, whereas Calaveras is about traveling through. You have a lot of cars traveling into Milpitas. And then you have Abbott, which is a frontage along the 880 freeway. So we'll look at all of those as part of the specific plan update. We'll look at each of those areas, focus in on them, and come up with a set of, working with the council and the community, come up with a set of policies and design ideas that will then hopefully put us in a better position to move forward in the future. So again, these three focus areas. Next slide, please. So just an idea about the timeline for this plan. We did interview several consultants in July. We have selected Ascent Environmental. This is the group that is currently working with the city on updating our climate action plan. So they're very familiar with the city. We've been working with them. Staff are very comfortable working with them. They have a group that's urban design and planning that we will be working with on this specific plan. And they've done a number of similar plans, both here in the Bay Area, Sacramento, and in Southern California. So we're very comfortable with them. Council approved the contract and the scope of work just at your last regular meeting in September. So we're about to kick off this project. And I thought I'd just give you a taste. You can see on the timeline here, we've got consultant selection and the kickoff. So between now and the end of the year, we'll do a lot of community visioning and community outreach. Again, bringing the conversation full circle. Those community conversations that we did back at the beginning of the year were a Kickstarter to this, and that will certainly help frame that discussion. It's not the only outreach that we'll do, but it will certainly jumpstart that. Within the next few months, we will be working with consultants to do some of the preliminary work, setting up a schedule, setting up a project website. They'll start on some of the analysis that they always do on it around existing conditions in the area, so they can understand a little better each of those focus areas. I believe their scope of work calls for some stakeholder interviews. We'll want to do one-on-one interviews with each of members of the council and some additional outreach. For example, at Holiday Magic, I think that the consultants on several of the days may have a booth down there where, as people gather, people from the community are gathering down there for that event. They can talk about what they, continuing that conversation about what do they want to see on Main Street. I expect that in winter, probably starting early next year, we'll have, similar to what we did with the Metro Plan, we'll have a series of study sessions with the council to talk about a policy framework and some design ideas. And based on your direction, then we'll begin putting the plan together. There will be a full CEQA analysis done as well. And the last thing I'll mention on this is, I know it's some of the council members have brought this up in the past, similar to what we have done, the city has done in the metro area. This specific plan will include a review of the infrastructure that is needed along Main Street and the other areas. And we'll come up with a basic infrastructure plan and then have a conversation with the council about possible impact fees to help pay for that infrastructure. I know that's been some of the comments that we've heard in past meetings when this has been brought up. So I think that is the last of my slides. Is there one more slide? Oh, yeah, I can just mention, I mentioned the 3 focus areas tonight because we're speaking about Main Street. This will give you an idea, when we talk about what is our Main Street focus area, it's the area between Able over to the railroad tracks, really. And this doesn't encompass the entire area, but we'd be going from a little bit north of the library down to Corning Street is one area, and then further down Corning down to Curtis is another section of Main Street. And those 2 areas, even though it's all Main Street, they're a little bit different. So one of the first challenges that we'll give to our consultants is to look at this area and make some suggestions and recommendation to us for appropriate policies according to these not necessarily micro areas, but this is a specific plan. So we want to get down into the specific details of each of these areas and what will work best for them. But you see here that, if we look at this one area, we've got a lot of existing small businesses that we need to support. This particular area has a lot of community facilities. At least of, probably the most notable one is the library itself and the wonderful historic preservation that was done there with the grammar school. And then Main Street, this area of Main Street actually has a lot of churches and historic buildings that we'll want to take a look at as well. So with that, that's the end of my comments. I'm happy to answer any questions, or we'll move to the next slide, which I believe is Economic Development Director Alex.
Let's keep it going. Thank you very much, Ned, our planning director, and we'll welcome Alex Andrade, our director of economic development. Welcome, Alex.
Good evening, Mayor Tran, Vice Chair Montano, and City Council. Thank you.
That's Vice Mayor Montano.
Vice Mayor Montano, I'm sorry, City Council. Your Economic Development Director, Alex Andrade. So I'm going to provide you an update on a few economic development tools that will help revitalize Main Street. So on the Storefront Improvement Grant Program, we have called it in the past the Facade Improvement Grant Program. There's a full slide coming up, so I'll just provide you a couple of key updates here. So we've worked with the City Attorney's Office to develop various program guidelines, such as a grant application. We have a program guidelines document and an agreement that would be between the city and the applicant. And we're very close to finalizing a contract with an architect for design services to guide grantees through not only the design process, but also the very important permit process. I'm pleased to report that we've received our first application. And at the moment, staff is currently reviewing that application. So next steps would be to execute a design consultant contract and to start a scope of work for this project located on South Main Street. I'll get a little bit deeper into this in the next slide. In terms of community events, although not as common, well, if we can just stay there, yes. Yeah, there's still a few items I need to speak on. In terms of community events, although not as common in Milpitas, hoping to change some of that. Economic development teams kind of writ large are known to host community events that are job fairs and workforce development type of events, but economic developers do host other types of events that highlight local businesses, such as the Technology Showcase. I founded a Technology Showcase at my last job, and it was very well received. Manufacturing Day, which of course we're hosting our 5th annual on Thursday, and placemaking events such as food trucks and music in downtown settings, as well as shop local events, just to name a few. So in this respect, we just look forward to partnering on Main Street events with various city departments, especially as it relates to placemaking and economic vitality that truly assists our businesses along Main Street. In terms of the storefront improvement grant program, very similar to what I just mentioned on the previous item on the, what was that? I think it was the, give me a sec here. I'm looking at my, the Storefront Improvement Grant Program. There's a full slide coming up on the bid, so I'm just going to provide a couple of updates here. So this spring, our Economic Development Specialist and I, Nicole Inamine, our Economic Development Specialist and I surveyed about 20 different businesses on Main Street to discuss and just get a better idea of interest related to establishing a business improvement district. The strong majority of people that we talked to supported the idea of a bid. So if this effort was to be pursued, it would likely lead to a property-based bid, which I can talk about in just a little bit. And then also, if that is successful, it might create a path for reestablishing a downtown business association. And then in terms of real estate development investment, we're partnering with the planning department on the Gateway Main Street specific plan, as you just heard Director Thomas indicate. And we've been in conversations with various property owners about their interest in real estate development along Main Street. So our role is, of course, in partnership with various city departments, but it's really to facilitate real estate development. And we certainly can envision downtown becoming a very vibrant place for businesses and economic vitality. So I'm going to go ahead and move forward to the next slide, please. Yeah, so this slide is about the Storefront Improvement Grant Program. Some cities do refer to it as a Facade Improvement Grant Program, which we have in the past, but we're going to be calling our program a Storefront Improvement Grant Program. So just to kind of give you a sense of what these Storefront Improvement Grant Programs do, they're really designed to assist property and business owners in rehabilitating their commercial buildings for the purpose of creating a positive visual impact, stimulating private investment, and really complementing other community development efforts. You may remember that the adopted fiscal year 2021-2022 budget does include $50,000 for storefront improvements, specifically for commercial buildings along Main Street. So while the Storefront Improvement Grant Program was funded previously, the pilot program was put on hold in 2020 due to the pandemic. And you know that the economic development team really had to reprioritize our work program to assist businesses with just pandemic impacts. So we were really focusing on business resiliency and recovery. So Vice Mayor Montana, you did mention earlier that it's been a while since you've heard about this program, and that's true. That's we put a hiatus for about 18 months, but we're now very excited to launch this pilot program with the existing $50,000. So as I mentioned before, we've already have completed various documents. I won't reiterate what I said earlier, but I will just say that our first grant application has been received, and it is for the Red Chili's and Best Sandwiches restaurants. So we're looking forward to moving that program ahead. So for the pilot program, we do have two different options that we're exploring. One would be with a design consultant, where they would provide assistance to the applicant, and the other one would be where we would provide additional funding to the applicant and grantee so that they can then utilize that funding for design services. And then depending on how these two approaches go, we will determine which path is the best way to go forward. And then lastly here, I recall that the City Council expressed interest in adding ARPA funds to the grant program to increase project opportunities along Main Street. With additional funding for the program, there will be an opportunity to increase grant amounts to both commercial property and business owners. So providing design services and permit assistance through this architect will definitely help our applicants get through not only the design process, but obtaining the permits. So as the agenda report states, the city council may want to consider $300,000 for a street front improvement grant program out of the ARPA funding, out of the $500,000. Next slide, please. And just that visual that you have in front of you there, it gives you a good sense of kind of a before and after, where the building on the left-hand side is actually a building out of Santa Fe. But you see it's a historic building, and then you see the improvement and what it looks like today through a grant program on the right-hand side. Okay, next slide now, please. So as it relates to the business improvement district, this is generally known as a public and private partnership in which property and business owners elect to make a collective contribution to things like maintenance, development, and or just promotions of that specific commercial district. So it's also important to say that the majority of property owners and business owners must agree to fund the bid through an extra assessment. Some would call that a levy, others would call that a tax, but at least 50% of those property owners or business owners must agree to assess themselves. And so businesses and property owners and commercial districts do really well through these bids. And they're known as economic development tools to fund various services like cleaning streets, providing security, public infrastructure improvements, construction of pedestrian and streetscape enhancements, and then marketing the area. And given that we have quite a few historic buildings, we could market the area as a historic district, for example. And it's also important to note that the services that this bid would provide are supplemental to those that are already being provided by public agencies. This program would be in alignment with Strategy 31 of our economic development strategy, which is to position Main Street as a community destination for local independent retail and restaurants. So if council is interested, a consultant could conduct a feasibility analysis to create this property-based bid or a business-based bid. So if the council is interested, again, in exploring the development of a bid, the consultant services that would be required would include a feasibility analysis and provide technical support to both the city and the property owners and business owners in order to form this bid. Through research, we learned that a feasibility analysis and technical support study could cost about $65,000. And as I mentioned earlier, before I conclude, if a bid is formed along Main Street, there may be an opportunity to reestablish the Downtown Business Association as well. That concludes my report.
Thank you very much, Alex. I love it. Hey, I'd like to recommend sending this business improvement district idea to the Economic Development and Trade Commission for further discussion. Withdraw this bid tonight and send this bid to the Economic Development and Trade Commission for further discussion, possible Main Street business owner outreach. Is there any opposition? Hearing no opposition. Okay, we got Councilmember Dominguez.
Point of clarification, you would like to send the facade infrastructure program back to the economic development?
As the BID.
The VID. That has already been discussed.
Okay, what was the feedback from the business owners on Main Street?
Alex, could you provide that feedback for us?
Yes, Councilmember Dominguez. Actually, just to clarify, the program that we've discussed and are launching is the Storefront Grant Improvement Program, formerly known as the Facade Grant Improvement Program. This business improvement district has not been discussed comprehensively, I would say, at our Economic Development and Trade Commission and or at Council. You likely have heard about it through our economic development strategy, and we have mentioned it when we've provided updates to the City Council, but it is not a program that has been approved by the Council, or even our Economic Development and Trade Commission has not advised or recommended to the City Council for approval at this point.
Thank you so much for the clarification. Thank you so much, Mayor. I was confusing it with the facade program. I appreciate the clarification.
You're welcome. All right, we have our Assistant City Manager, Ashwini Kantak. Are you ready?
Yes, Mayor, thank you. If we could go to the next slide, please. We just have a couple more slides. So this is regarding the American Rescue Plan Act funding. And so actually, as you know, Council approved on August 5th, you approved the preliminary investment plan for ARPA funding. And within that plan is $500,000 that was allocated for Main Street revitalization. And potential areas that have been discussed before include the Street Front Improvement Grant Program that Alex just talked about, work related to ongoing activation of Main Street, as well as the potential formation of a business improvement district. And so today, staff is really seeking council input and direction on potential areas of investment, the three that have been mentioned here, or any additional ones. And then based on this input, as well as lessons learned from the pilot program, the Street Front Improvement Grant Program that Alex talked about, as well as Holiday Magic on Main Street, we will bring back recommendations for council consideration. So we're not requesting direction on any specific allocations of ARPA funding for Main Street revitalization today, but really would welcome any input on areas we should look at so that we can bring back a recommended funding plan early next year. Next slide, please. And just want to touch upon kind of fiscal impact. You already heard about some of the details on the costs from Renee earlier. So the adopted fiscal year 21-22 budget does incorporate council direction that was provided on May 11th regarding Main Street revitalization budget. And as mentioned previously, the costs at that time were estimated at $115,000, with approximately $50,000 of these that were targeted to be offset through donations and sponsorships. And these costs were actually based on events that initially we thought would occur over 2 weekends for a total of 11 days, but based on some of the council discussion, events were planned to span 3 weekends for a total of 16 days, which is approximately a 50% increase in the number of days. And in addition to the number of days, you heard about some of the challenges from Renee about cost increases related to supply chain issues and inflation resulting from the pandemic. So the costs are now estimated at approximately $200,000. And as you heard earlier, we are continuing with some vigorous fundraising efforts, and we've already surpassed the initial target. So we're also continuing to negotiate service costs as well as kind of staffing scheduling so as to minimize costs. So we're not requesting any additional funding at this time. We may likely need to come back for some, but if we do, we'll bring forward recommendations for the use of the ARPA funding for Main Street revitalization, which is another reason we didn't really want to bring forward any specific allocations today. I think we'll be in a much better position to provide council with additional information for a decision early next year. And I think with that, the next slide is just a staff recommendation on receiving the status update, as well as providing any direction to us on potential areas of investment from the ARPA funding. Thank you.
Thank you very much, our Assistant City Manager, Ashwini Kantak. Let's go to the dais. We have Councilmember Chua. All right, get your microphone.
Sorry, Mayor.
All good. Hey,
Thank
I'm gonna press these buttons as many times as I need to.
Thank you. Thank you,
For the
Mayor
microphone,
Tran.
yes.
Ashwini, I just have a quick question on your fiscal slide, the first one, please. I just want a clarification of when you say 500,000 for Main Street revitalization, does that include the 400,000 that I recommended, which the council approved for what we're calling now, used to be facade improvement, now it's storefront improvement? Because I remember there were like 20 businesses candidates for this facade improvement. So 20 times the estimated cost each. Yes, that's why we earmarked 400,000 for it. Is this part of that 500,000?
Yes,
Revitalization?
Yes, Councilmember Chua, that's correct. So that includes the street front improvements. The challenge with the number of improvements, it does take some time for staff to work with. Again, if we're going, depending on the model we go with, if we're going to go with, providing design assistance. So each of these, based on kind of some of the experience Alex has had before and I have had in San Jose, it does take a while to work on these. So, and we know we have a deadline for ARPA funds. So I think we're going to have to look at that in terms of how much we can realistically do. But yes, the 500,000 does include money for street front improvements and then potentially other areas. And so how much goes to which one will be what we'll bring back early next year.
But the 400,000 specifically earmarked for those purpose, not for anything else. I don't know at that time. You have an extra 100,000. I think even if you look at your ARPA distribution, you will see it's earmarked for that the facade improvement for 20 businesses on Main Street.
We just have it as one bucket, Councilmember Chua. We're happy to bring it back for further discussion, but the plan that was approved on August 5th includes Main Street revitalization as one category, and it says could include money for street front improvements as well as the work related to Main Street revitalization. And so if that was council's direction to keep 400,000 for that program, then we would have 100,000 available for other stuff related to Main
I think that was clear. That was clear on the recommendation. I don't know why we have a bucket for Main Street revitalization, because that's not the intent of that 400,000.
Sure, and we can, Councilmember Chua, we're happy to bring it back. There were 3 items on August 5th, there were 3 areas that we said we would come back with. This was one of them, the Main Street one. Workforce development was another one, and then rent and mortgage relief was the third one. So those 3, we said we are having kind of the overall amount approved within the plan, and we would come back with more detail. And, again, if that's council direction, we're happy to bring it back accordingly.
Also, I agree with Mayor Tran to bring the BID, the Business Improvement District, to the economic development, because this is the first time we heard of it.
Sure.
And also, I would like to explore the suggestion from Councilmember Dominguez to look into, instead of spending $60,000 for the lighting of the City Hall, maybe we should probably make it simple and make Public Works do the lighting and skip the $60,000 expense, because our focus now is on Holiday Magic. And I think that's one area that we should look into. Those are my thoughts. Thank you, Mayor Tran.
Thank you, Councilmember.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Chua. I want to go to each council member and then remind the dais here that we do have public comment for this item as well. But I want to respond to Councilmember Chua about the annual and Milpitas tradition lighting of City Hall. We must continue to do that, and I appreciate your position on that. But we are in our Public Works Department, as you may be aware, short-staffed, and so we want to ensure that we're covering the other maintenance areas that we have. But that's something that I hope you will consider. Thank you very much, Councilmember Chua. All right, let's go to Councilmember Fan, and then I want to go to public comment and then bring it back up to the dais. Councilmember Fan, I did see a virtual raised hand. Are you there?
I am. I can come back after public comments. I do want to hear from the residents.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Just want to knock out the public comment portion. All right, it's public comment here for the item. Come on up, come on up. I do see a member of the public here in the chamber. Come on up, sir. Watch your step. Watch your step. Welcome. 1 minute.
Voltaire Montemar of Milpitas. Very interesting topic and a lot of details. I'll make that 3 minutes into 1 minute as I'm around the 53, 52. Anyway, as far as the target on the expenses, anyway, I know all the crack and crevices of Main Street. In other words, more development will come there. I agree. I dream for that. On the expenses, if we only have one, I have too many for the revenue. One is a popularity contest. If we have the popularity contest, I think the 200,000 revenue will be produced. And it's a long details. I could help with that. Like my small association in the social dance, if you like the barbecue chicken, they could buy it for $2,000. My small association. But when it comes to Main Street popularity contest, a roasted pig could cost many thousands. Thank you.
Some late on Friday, absolutely. Thank you very much, Uncle. I do want to. You did inspire me, Mr. Montemayor. I want to check in with Renee, our Director of Recreation and Community Services. Did we have St. John's Church as one of our partners? I know the Vice Mayor and Councilmember Chua are over there at the Ladies Guild and doing those things. I know they have a whole bunch of events there. Renee?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. We are sending notice down the entirety of Main Street, St. John's included, and I know a number of the members of the Ladies Guild will most likely want to volunteer as well. So we'll definitely reach out, make sure they're participating with us.
Awesome, thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome, thank you. And feel free to reach out to Commissioner Montemayor for any further assistance. All right, public comment here, looking in the chamber. Now I'm going to the Zoom. We're on the Zoom, folks. Thanks for tuning in on youtube.com or Facebook live stream. Many of you are also on our Zoom platform. And we have a virtual raised hand. We have John Ag. Welcome.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. I have 2 points on the holiday magic that I would like to raise. The first is item 4 on the cost summary, the $12,500 for art projects. I want to clarify exactly how much of that is the mobile mural and the other cost, or what the balance of that cost would be. If it is temporary murals, I don't believe that could be taken from the Public Art Fund. Secondly, I'm sort of following a pattern that Councillor Chua has raised in the past, namely, what is the defined goal of this holiday magic? And are we going to be measuring it in some fashion? Will we know how many visitors will attend? How many are local residents versus outside? What response the people, our community will have to the event? I think that's important to measure that. Thank you.
Thank you. It's our Arts Commission Chair, John Ag. I'm not sure if one of our city teammates here, city staff, would anybody want to chime in? We all know Mr. Ag, yes. If anybody would like to chime in, I like those questions because I'm sure we got great answers. Our Assistant City Manager, Ashwini Kantak here.
Thank you, Mayor. I was actually going to ask Renee to talk about the temporary art. It is eligible for public art funding depending on where it is. And so maybe she can expand on that.
Yeah, we checked our public art fund, the public art policy. So the temporary murals are allowable, and specifically for the temporary mural for Main Street, that is not part of that $12,500. That is part of the City Council's mural program. And that mural will travel around Milpitas. That is something we anticipate having to store for a while. So if that answers that. And then as far as measuring the event attendance, we can do that through the purchases to participate at the rink itself. We, after 20 years, have become quite skilled at counting people and heads at different periods of an event time to get a good count. We also have city booths and marketing booths, and we talk to the participants that come up. We do quick little polls, where are you from, to gauge how many residents were there. We've done walk-around marketing surveys as well at different events. So all of those things we can employ to measure people's happiness when they're there and what they liked, what they didn't like, and what they would like to see at future events as well.
Great. Thank you very much. Our Director of Recreation and Community Services, Renee Lorenzen. Okay, great. Looking for any further public comment for this agenda item, look into the Zoom platform attendees. I do see a list of attendees. If you'd like to speak for this item, now would be your time. Going once, going twice. Okay, that's it for public comment. Bringing it back up to the virtual dais. I'm ready to sort of move this item forward with pretty much all the recommendations of our staff, or just give whatever action we need tonight, which is not much from what I've heard. But the Business Improvement District, that is something I'd like to send to the Economic Development and Trade Commission. Okay, great. We're going to the virtual dais here. Councilmember Dominguez.
Thank you very much. I'm present. Thank you very much, Mayor. Let's see, I have a couple. So in terms of what staff have requested today, I would like to express the concerns of our community that feel that we need to collaborate more with nonprofits, which I agree, to ensure that we are investing taxpayers' dollars to a sustainable plan. Personally, I would like staff to come back with a pre-approved diagram for nonprofits that can be used and adopted, and that we use ARPA funding to subsidize permit fees for those nonprofits to host events on Main Street. I would also like to support the feedback of our community and direct staff to help cover building permits, and ask staff to come back to see how we could use ARPA funding to subsidize the expansion or the implementation of COVID-19 upgrades that the businesses are doing to keep customers safe. I would also like to support the agenda item of Vice Mayor Carmen Montano by asking staff to please come back and request that ARPA funding is used to support a Main Street live business universal permit and subsidize those fees, or maybe just do a universal program that would be free for all. I don't see any city cost to that. But if so, I would like to see ARPA funding suggested for that. In terms of the event in itself, could we go back to that slide, please, with the allocated funding? Thank you so much. So a couple of concerns that I have. One is COVID. I would like to know are we going to be requiring community members to be vaccinated to attend this event?
For outdoor events, the threshold for the public to attend and not have to submit anything is 10,000 people at this time.
Thank you.
At one time, 10,000 people at one time. So we don't anticipate reaching that on site at one time right now.
Okay, thank you. I definitely want to support this vision because I think it's important. And I want to clarify, the lighting question was just to give the public an idea of how much money we already spend from the general fund lighting up Milpitas. And so I want them to know that it's over, it's about 60,000 to light up City Hall. And I don't think folks knew that number, because I know I just discovered that number too. So my intention is just to provide a common sense policy and common sense budget spending to build sustainable infrastructure for Main Street that goes, I agree with, I love banners, I love Christmas lights, but I think right now we need to really look at the economical investment that we can make with ARPA. And just like community members have said, I personally would not like to see $10,000 spent in music and entertainment. I think we could use our community members in groups that are out there. So I'm having a hard time, as much as I feel torn because I really want to support all of this, but it's $200,000 in the middle of a pandemic. So I'm trying to find the compromise and the overlap. I definitely could support the number 6 item, which is the food trucks and restaurants, because it's still zero cost to the city. I definitely want to support the ice rink, because that's something that could come out of ARPA completely, and it could generate a cost recovery. And I want to support the Vice Mayor's idea on that from the initial request that came in when we had the ARPA conversation. I definitely want to support the community holiday trees and snow globes. I think that's really special, and our community is very, very excited to see that. I do see that there is an expense cost of number 10 for equipment and on-site services, but I feel we could, as one team, fundraise, and I know staff is working hard to get sponsorships. In terms of the rest of the items, it's personally, I just feel $200,000 could be invested in other ways on Main Street, and with all due respect and kindness, this is in no way a reflection of the motion maker. This is just common sense policy. I feel we have an opportunity to build a sustainable program to build nonprofit partnerships. And I feel that this is an opportunity to use that ARPA funding for that sustainable. For me, sustainability, with all due respect, is more than Christmas lights and banners. It's what are we going to do to generate funding, because we don't have money. And we're trying to generate funding in the middle of a pandemic and also have fun, which I totally understand is really, really important to so many of us, including myself. And so with that, I will yield my my time to my colleagues. With all due respect, I want to support this entire item, but I just don't feel that ARPA funding is being maximized to a sustainability plan. $200,000 is a lot of money. A lot of it is coming out of that general fund, and I would prefer to see how much money is fundraised by sponsors, and then move into to decide what expenses, if that's an opportunity. But at this time, I do have to share those concerns that do come from our community who are watching us, because this ARPA funding could also use to upgrade all of our parks. And so as much as I want to have fun, the priority is for parks as well. This is the tough part of being a council member. With all due respect to my colleagues, it has nothing to do with your ideas. I think they're great. It's just common sense policy to maximize taxpayers' money. I thank you very much for your consideration and time.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Dominguez. I will consider your request when I make my motion. Let's see here. Next up, let me go Councilmember Fan.
Thank you. Renee, are you with us? All right. So in regards to, creative ways to generate excitement in regards to potential recreation activities and events, hear me out. 4 words: city-sponsored Squid Games.
Yes, council member. Add it to the list.
I'm kidding, obviously, but in all seriousness, I think what we have on the table has a lot of potential. My preference obviously would be for it to take place during a year that's not during a pandemic. But since we're having this conversation now, my concerns aren't really so much about costs as it is about public health and safety. I think that I can be supportive of most of the things that are laid out here. If we added additional public health policies and procedures, above what is required by the state or county. And so I refer to, I think what I discussed earlier during public comment of proof of vaccination. I think that would give me a lot of comfort. I know, I think earlier you mentioned if it's anticipated to generate over like 10,000 people, then it would be required. In this situation, I think it would give me a lot of comfort if we can implement that regardless. And so that's my only request. Other than that, I'm hearing a lot of excitement amongst the council, amongst the community, and I do want to be supportive, and I hope that we can take into mind these public health consideration and have fun while we're at it. I don't think it's mutually exclusive. I think you can still have fun and be safe. But I do want to make sure that we are prepared. The last thing I want is, people going home sick and, pointing the finger to, this specific event. So that's it from me. Thank you, staff, for an incredible presentation. I was hoping for further conversation on the business improvement district. I have heard it come up several times prior to this meeting, but I understand the concerns of my colleagues. So I'm sure staff will be obliged. And when it does come to back to us for that conversation, I'm looking forward to implementing it and going forward from there. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Fan. I appreciate your remarks this evening, and I will consider your requests when I make my motion. Next up here, we have Vice Mayor Montano.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a few comments on some of my colleagues' comments. So there was a recommendation not to do light the trees at City Hall. That is a tradition that it's been there since I was a kid, and I don't agree with that. It needs to stay. It's like taking away part of the heart of Milpitas. It needs to stay. I really feel adamant about that. Also, when we were discussing ARPA funds, we have different categories. We have the small business fund, we have the community fund, we have the infrastructure fund. So all those things will be they will be processed, during the time that we go through the ARPA funds. Remember, we got $16 million from ARPA, and that we already decided and those funds are already earmarked. We also have a $5 million surplus. So, and then as far as the pandemic goes, everything is open. Didn't they just have a football game the other day? And people are I go to the library, people are at the library. So it's not like, we gotta, I know we have to be mindful, but it's, things are opening up and more people are vaccinated. And
86% vaccination rate in Santa Clara County.
Yeah, actually, we 100% vaccination in Santa Clara County, Milpitas. Thank you, Milpitas, for the employees.
Well, that's for the city government, yes.
So as noted earlier, the council has approved 500,000 for Main Street revitalization and also 300,000 for a street front improvement program. And I think we should stay on course. This is really important for the community. We have never gone this far out for the people, the families in this community. So I'm hoping that the mayor will approve this. This is important. And thank you so much, staff, for doing all this work. Your heart is in this. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vice Mayor Montano. We're looking for Councilmember Chua. I think we're approaching conclusion to this item. But Councilmember Chua, if you are available, please be present. So I will go ahead oh, there she is. I'll go ahead and make a motion at this time to provide direction to staff on the ARPA funding for the Main Street revitalization. I want to take Councilmember Dominguez's recommendations regarding nonprofit support and send that to the Economic Development and Trade Commission for further discussion. And also with our staff liaison there to provide support. I want to recognize Councilmember Fan with his public health care. And I want to stick with our Santa Clara County Public Health Department guidelines. They are the experts, Dr. Cody, is it? And I trust Dr. Cody with outdoor events. And I see our regional partners, I should say, Santa Clara having big football games, and I see San Jose's doing music festivals and bicycle events and things. So I have faith that with the magic on Main Street, we can go with the county public health guidelines. I do appreciate Councilmember Chua's City Hall lights, and Councilmember Chua supports that 100%. I just want to make sure that we actually contract the work out, because we are at a personnel shortage of maintenance workers, and we need them beautifying Milpitas. I know you like that. Okay, great. And so I do want to, that's the direction I want to give. And the Business Improvement District also send that to the Economic Development and Trade Commission for further discussion. Everything else as presented by staff, I really like that a lot. So is there anything else you need? Okay. And so that's my motion. I need a second. We have a second from the Vice Mayor. Second. Let's go to comment here. Councilmember Dominguez.
Hello. Thank you so much, Mayor. I definitely wanted to share something with the public in terms of the comments made by Councilmember Fan. Many of you have noticed that I have not been on the council dais. The reason for that is because I faced a numerous number of COVID exposures. COVID is real. This pandemic is still here. There is people currently who are being exposed, who have received vaccination and are still getting COVID. The results of a test need to be taken on day 1 and day 5. This public health issue is real. It's real. And so I got a quick reminder again last week how important it is to mask up, because I've been able to take these meetings from our office upstairs and from home. I share that with you because I do feel this has saved me from exposure to COVID-19. And many times it's from colleagues or coworkers who don't know that they're positive. That's exactly what's happening. So I want to echo the sentiments of Councilmember Fan and suggest that 10,000 people could have dying consequences. And there is cities whose leadership are asking for vaccinations. I personally think that if we're going to host an event with at least 10,000 people, we should be asking for at least a test that is negative or a vaccination. That is what the arena is doing. That is what big events are doing. That's what the Giant Stadium is doing. So we're talking about 10,000 people. I want to stay positive, but I want to quickly remind this council that we had a situation not that long ago here, and that could have been a massive regional exposure. That could happen in Milpitas. And I don't want to be part of the leadership that said it was okay. So I would like to kindly ask you, Mayor, would you please consider asking for attendees to present either a negative COVID test, which most people are already doing for work, or a negative vaccination card at the entrance. Thank you very much for your consideration.
Next up, we have Councilmember Chua.
Thank you, Mayor Tran. Point of clarification on the motion. That's
a point of information. There's
Point
no
of
such
information, I'm sorry.
There's no such point of clarification.
Point of information on the cost summary. This is for Ashwini. Ashwini, the breakdown of the costs, most of this cost is from the general fund. So in terms of your request, there's no ARPA funding on this breakdown. Am I missing something here?
No, that's correct, Councilmember Chua. So the 200,000 does not include any ARPA funding, any proposed ARPA funding at this point. We are looking at general fund, sponsorship, recreation fees, public art funds, all of that, CIP. And then if we do need additional funding, we will come back to you with a request for some of the ARPA funding set aside for Main Street revitalization. Again, that will be in the context of everything else that the 500,000 is set aside for. So that's when we would bring back that discussion, which is why today we didn't have a specific allocation ask.
So it's not really for this event?
No, not.
Okay, I just want to make that clear.
That's correct.
Thank you, Ashwini. Thank you, Mayor Tran.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Chua. I have no further comment, no further information beyond the responses I've given to my colleagues. And we have a motion by myself. We have a second from the Vice Mayor. All in favor. I want to say all in favor, but we can't. Let's go one by one. Councilmember Chua.
Aye.
Councilmember Dominguez.
Could you please repeat the motion? Thank you.
The motion has been made. You have the option to vote.
Could you please repeat what the motion was, please? What are we voting for? If you could just repeat the motion.
Were you not able to recall, or I'm not sure?
I just want point of clarification to make sure that I understand it, and I want the public to listen to the motion.
Okay, it is the motion. Staff, you have the motion? Let's hear from staff.
Sure, I will try to rephrase phrase the motion. The motion was with the item before us to include Councilmember Dominguez's nonprofit support being moved to the Economic Development Trade Commission, regarding Councilmember Phan's comment on public health to be forwarded or to follow the Santa Clara County Public Health Guidelines, and regarding the BID, that item be forwarded to the Economic Development Commission. Everything else was to be as presented by staff. That was the motion.
Point of clarification, as presented, that includes the budget that has been presented within the presentation, correct?
Yes.
I abstain. Thank you.
And next up, we have Councilmember Fan.
Hey.
Next up, we have Vice Mayor Montano.
Aye.
And myself is an aye. That's the direction of staff. Magic on Main Street and Main Street revitalization. Here we come. All right, next up, item number 12. Let's receive a presentation from staff and provide direction on policy options to regulate tobacco retail permitting, flavored tobacco and electronic cigarette products, and tobacco retail location limits. And we'll go to our planning director, Ned Thomas.
Thank you, Mayor Tran, members of the council. Again, pleased to be back with you for this item. It is a study session. We have some options for you to consider and are looking for input and direction so that we might bring back policy to you at a future meeting. We should have our principal planner, Jay Lee, here. He has been, to make the presentation, he has been coordinating with our Recreation and Community Services Department, primarily with Renee Lawrenson and Tegan McLean, as well as a consultant from Santa Clara County Health on this grant-funded item. So I'm not seeing him on my screen yet. If he could be promoted up to make the presentation. I know he's tuned in. While we're waiting, well, go ahead, Ashwini.
No, I was just going to ask if Wendy, if she can do that. I can see him in the attendee list. So if you can please promote Jay Lee, Wendy or Pam.
And while we're waiting, I can start and give you the quick overview, and then he has the details. But the presentation is outlined as shown on your screen, and this follows the staff report. He'll have a brief introduction and give you a little bit of background. This is part 2 of a larger project that we've been working on. You may recall that the council adopted a policy for no smoking in multifamily housing and public areas and earlier this year. And this is part 2. Jay has some additional details on that. There's been some extensive public engagement done around this topic, again, in collaboration with our Recreation and Community Services Department. There's an online survey, and then there are a few policy elements that Jay will present, as well as options for your consideration. So, here's Jay now. Thanks,
Hey,
Jay. Thanks for joining us. In the meantime, I covered your first slide. I don't know if I did quite as well as you would have done, but I'll turn the rest of it over to you because you're a pro at this.
Thanks, Ned. So yeah, I'm happy to be here to present on the policy options for retail tobacco. And I also want to mention that that county staff is here to answer any other questions and just to provide additional support. So I think they joined as attendees. If we could promote them to a panelist as well. All right, so next slide, please. All right, so before getting into the details of the tobacco retail policy options, I wanted to share a bit about Santa Clara County, the Public Health Department's Healthy Cities program. I mentioned this in a previous presentation when we went over the smoke-free ordinance, but just wanted to reiterate that the county has implemented this policy or this program to provide funding for local jurisdictions to implement tobacco-free policies. And as you can see on the slide, on July 20th of last year, Milpitas received a $37,560 grant to explore tobacco prevention policies to reduce youth access and exposure through this program. And then on March 16th of this year, Council authorized staff to execute a service agreement with Santa Clara County. Next slide, please. And before, again, going into the tobacco retail side, I do want to talk a little bit about the smoke-free ordinance that we adopted in June of this year to expand the smoke-free areas within Milpitas to include entryways, service areas, public events, multi-unit housing, and common areas of multi-unit housing. So as you can see in this table, previously we, perhaps we're a little bit behind other cities in adopting smoke-free policies for various areas, but now we've definitely caught up and could be considered one of the leaders in adopting smoke-free policies to protect our most vulnerable populations. However, I do want to mention that the city does not actively monitor tobacco retailers to further protect our youth. So we are now shifting our focus to developing policies to better monitor tobacco retailers and educate the youth and parents about the health hazards of smoking, which is a related effort that the Recreation and Community Services Department is leading. And I was speaking about the education and the outreach component, but this item here before you today is focusing on better monitoring the tobacco retailers in our city and the new ones that could arise in the future. Next slide, please. And the need for these retail tobacco policies is more pressing when you look at tobacco use among our youth. So as you can see on the slide, within Santa Clara County, 93% of teens using tobacco used a flavored product. 80% of youth who have used tobacco started with a flavored product as well. And in the United States, e-cigarette use doubled amongst high school students and tripled amongst middle school students from 2017 to 2019. And I do want to mention that most e-cigarettes do contain nicotine, and young people who vape are also more likely to start smoking traditional cigarettes. Next slide, please. Furthermore, most cities in Santa Clara County have adopted or are in the process of adopting retail tobacco policies, as you can see in this table. I do want to mention that San Jose recently did adopt an ordinance to prohibit the sale of flavored tobacco. And many cities have adopted policies addressing all the policy elements I will discuss in detail later in this presentation. So you could just take a look at this chart and just see that various local jurisdictions have implemented some of these elements, and I'll go over each one shortly. Next slide, please. All right, so to first provide an overview of the work plan, we started with policy research, just looking at what other cities are doing, researching the best practices, and also looking into the state and federal laws, which I will also go into detail in a little bit. Then we're in the public engagement phase as of right now. We did start the engagement for this part of the policy last year, actually, when we were doing the engagement and released a survey for the smoke-free ordinance. We tried to get ahead of that and also included questions about tobacco retailers. So it was a separate effort, but since it was related, we got a lot of great information from our community members. And we also released another recent survey, and in the near future, we plan on conducting targeted outreach to businesses. Then the next phase of this work is to draft the ordinance based off of the best practices, community feedback, and council direction. And then finally, getting to ordinance adoption, hopefully by near the end of the year. Next slide. So just want to talk a little bit about the survey results from the survey from last year. In a previous presentation, I did focus on the responses to the smoke-free questions, but today I'll be focusing on the responses to the retail tobacco questions. So the survey was held last year from July 15th until August 31st. We received 125 responses. We shared the survey link on the city's website and through social media, and also sent postcard notices to all multi-unit properties, the senior center, and summer camps. Next slide. A little bit about the survey participants. 84% were residents, 16% own or manage a business or multifamily building, and 95% do not smoke tobacco or cannabis products. A little more data about flavored tobacco in particular. 69% think flavored tobacco products are more appealing to youth than unflavored tobacco products. And 40% think it is easy for youth to buy flavored tobacco products in Milpitas. Next slide. So as you can see by these questions, I won't go through each one in detail, but we asked a question about flavored tobacco products, another question about selling, or new retailers within 1,000 feet of schools, new retailers within 500 feet from existing tobacco retailers, banning the sale of tobacco at pharmacies, and also implementing a local license. And again, I'll go through all of these in greater detail soon. But I guess the main point is that there is widespread support in Milpitas for retail tobacco policies, which is consistent with the support that we've seen throughout the entire county. Next slide. Now I'm going to go into more detail about the various elements of a potential tobacco retailer permit ordinance. So the first element is the tobacco retailer permit. And as you can see on this slide, there is a license that the state issues, and currently over 150 cities and counties require a local tobacco retailer permit in addition to the California license. The goals of a tobacco retailer permit program would be to create more comprehensive regulations than state law, allow meaningful penalties for violation, and fund local enforcement through local licensing fees. And just to give you an idea of the existing retailers, there are 40 tobacco retailers currently in Milpitas. Next slide. The next element of a potential policy or program is flavored tobacco. And I do want to mention that there is currently federal law that prohibits the sale of candy and fruit flavored cigarettes, but not of menthol cigarettes or flavored non-cigarette tobacco products. State law, namely SB 793, prohibits most flavored tobacco products except hookah products, premium cigars, and loose leaf tobacco. And opponents did, however, recently submit a referendum, and the vote is up in November of 2022. And there also are expected lawsuits from various tobacco retail companies. So given the current situation and the uncertainty around implementation of state law, the Santa Clara County Public Health Department recommends that local governments continue to adopt laws to monitor the sale of flavored tobacco products. So the question for us is whether we want to take any local action and include a provision in our in a potential tobacco retail ordinance about flavored tobacco. Next slide. The next element is regarding electronic cigarettes. If you aren't familiar, there is a photo on this slide that gives you some examples, but it is the most popular product among California youth. 8% of Santa Clara County teens used e-cigarettes in the past month. And youth users are 7 or 8 times more likely to try cigarettes and become regular smokers. Next slide. And the last component to a policy is location limits. So there are various ways to provide some limitations on where new retailers would locate throughout the city of Milpitas. To be clear, this would not be a citywide prohibition on new retailers, and this does not impact existing retailers. So these location limits are specifically for new retailers that are trying to come in. So I do want to explain the map a little bit. As you can see in the green, I'll start with the green. That shows a buffer of 1,000 feet from sensitive land uses, which includes schools, libraries, parks, public facilities, or community facilities where youth are likely to be at. And then the purple areas demonstrate a 500-foot buffer from existing retailers. And then the orange areas show currently the zones where retailers are allowed. So It's not like retailers are allowed right now in every part of the city, but of the areas where they are allowed, we want to make sure that new retailers are not locating in areas that would be close to schools or close to other sensitive uses. And I do want to mention that the research does show that density of retailers is associated with increased youth smoking. And also that more than 50 cities, California cities and counties currently restrict location of retailers within a certain distance of schools. Next slide.
Do a little quick time check here. Thank you. Carry on.
All right. So I do want to go over the policy options before getting feedback from the council. Option number one is to follow Santa Clara County's ordinance. If cities adopt a tobacco retail permit ordinance that matches the county's ordinance, the County Department of Environmental Health has agreed to administer, implement, and enforce the city's ordinance. This agreement, an agreement will be negotiated and executed by the city manager with the county prior to the start of the program. The fees collected by the county, which would be approximately, or would be collected by county, which would be approximately $725 per retailer for application submittal and $425 for each annual renewal. The benefit of this option is that it is cost effective. The county already has a program and staff to administer the program, so no additional staff or overhead would be required of the city. And currently, some cities that have decided to follow Santa Clara County's ordinance are Palo Alto, Cupertino, and Los Gatos. Next slide. But if we were to follow the county's ordinance and and also reap the benefit of utilizing the county's staff and time for enforcement, we would have to adopt the same elements of the county's ordinance. So the key requirements are there, requiring a local permit, prohibiting the sale of flavored tobacco, including menthol cigarettes, prohibiting sale of e-cigarettes and vaping products, the 1,000-foot buffer minimum distance from schools, the 500-foot minimum distance from existing retailers, and also prohibiting tobacco sales in pharmacies. Some other requirements you can see there are requiring retailers to post notice, requiring retailers to check ID, prohibiting the sale of tobacco products from vending machines, also prohibiting retailers from covering more than 15% of the windows, and prohibiting mobile tobacco retailing or tobacco retailing at a temporary event. Next slide, please. Option number two would be to administer a local TRP program. So if a city chooses to deviate from the county's ordinance and administer its own program, it will need to issue a license to tobacco retailers with a fee that's calculated based off of the expected cost to cover the cost, and also create a mechanism for enforcing compliance. This enforcement typically involves compliance checks by code enforcement staff, youth decoy operations with the county's sheriff's department or local PD, and a series of graduated penalties, increased fees, and ultimately, eventually, suspension of license. So, while this would give us more flexibility, the downside or the challenge would be that it would present an added cost to the city, requiring additional staff and resources to administer and enforce the program. Next slide. So we do have a couple of questions for the council. First, does the council support partnering with Santa Clara County to administer a local TRP program? If Milpitas should administer its own local TRP program, which policy elements should be addressed in the city's TRP ordinance? Next slide, please. So this concludes my presentation, and we are available. Ned and I are available to answer any questions, also our county staff. Perhaps we can go back to the study session questions just to help guide the discussion. So thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Jay, for the presentation. This certainly is an agenda item that we have been waiting to arrive, and it has arrived tonight. I will go to my colleagues here if there's any requests for comment. Yes, first up here we have Councilmember Chua.
Thank you, Mayor. Jay, on number one, what does it mean to partner with Santa Clara County to administer a local TRP program? What is the extent of their responsibility and what is ours?
So the benefit of partnering with Santa Clara County is that, they will have their staff go out and collect fees and also enforce the provisions of essentially their ordinance, which we would be adopting as our own, the regulations, that apply to the city of Milpitas as well. So, that would be one option. The other option is if we want to create our own ordinance, which doesn't have to match exactly the Santa Clara County's ordinance, we would have to figure out a way to, get the staff and get the resources and the time to enforce and administer the program. We'd also have to do perhaps some sort of a study to figure out the fee. So it would definitely involve a lot more work from the city, but going with the county's ordinance would essentially, the county would be responsible for enforcing the program.
When you say that they'll be responsible for collecting the fees, if they do that, do we have a share for the fees as well?
I don't believe so, because we won't have to dedicate any staff time or resources, because the fees that are being collected are essentially to cover, the cost of implementing and enforcing.
And if we do it ourselves, we keep the fees, correct?
Yes.
If we do it, if we do option 2, then we collect the fees ourselves. On the other hand, we have to provide the staff. So there's a trade-off. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mayor Tran.
You're welcome. Thank you very much, Councilmember Chua. Next up, we have Councilmember Dominguez.
Thank you very much, Mayor, and thank you, staff, for the presentation. I just want to have a clarifying question in terms of federal policy that passed in terms of the non-tobacco e-cigarettes and the flavored. I was under the understanding that was going to pull these items out of the shelf. Not too sure how that would impact, if any. Maybe you could explain a little bit more to me, please.
Oh, in terms of the existing retailers, correct?
Correct. If there was new policy legislation that has been passed by the federal government that is doing something similar to regulate these items, I was just wondering how they would correlate, which one comes first, I guess, or which one supersedes.
Yes, the federal and state regulations, if they do hold up, would supersede, for prohibiting the sale of flavored tobacco. The reason why the county would recommend that, that cities include that provision in the ordinance, even though there is federal and state law, is because of the uncertainty surrounding that situation, with the lawsuits and with the referendum coming up for vote in next year. So, but in the end, when it comes to any kind of a regulation, the state and federal would supersede unless they specifically allow discretion to local jurisdictions.
And if I might add to that, Jay, I believe in your presentation, you also mentioned that the federal law, while it covers flavored tobacco, it doesn't necessarily cover menthol and some other products. And I believe the state law also has similar exceptions. As you noted, there were 3 for hookah products, premium cigars, which are cigars that are wholesale priced over, I think, $12 each, and loose tobacco. So the local ordinance would, or the local program would take that a step further. And again, we would apply the county's program to our local retailers, similar to what they do in other communities across the county.
Thank you. I'm so sorry. I'm going to kindly ask the Vice Mayor and the Mayor. I can't hear staff. Could you please keep private conversations? Excuse me. Hello? Could you please keep private conversations to the minimal? I'm sorry, I just couldn't hear staff. So staff, could you repeat everything you just said? I couldn't hear anything because I kept hearing mumbling on the side. I apologize.
Oh, thank you, Council Member Dominguez. So I was just mentioning that while there are no smoking and regulations at the federal and the state level regarding flavored tobacco, at the state level, there are exceptions for certain types of products, including hookah products, premium cigars, and loose cut tobacco. So a local regulation would address those exceptions.
Okay. So if we implemented just not having, just taking them off the shelf, moving in that direction, then that would require us to do our own local TRP program, correct? If we chose to just ban flavor altogether in the city of Milpitas and all these other items?
Not necessarily, because we have an option to essentially adopt the county's ordinance as our own. And that ordinance does prohibit flavored tobacco, sale of flavored tobacco.
Okay. Thank you very much for the clarification. I appreciate those responses. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, going to the dais here for any further comment. Looking for any further comment. Okay, Councilmember Chua.
Thank you, Mayor John. I just have a quick question to Jay. Jay, I know that San Jose just recently implemented their TRP program as well. Have you seen the difference between San Jose and the state's plan? Is there a basic difference between the state and San Jose's adopted ordinance?
I believe so, but I'm hoping that maybe perhaps Leslie and Jennifer could provide a little more detail.
Hi, this is Leslie Zellers. Can you guys hear me? Oh, I can see you.
Welcome. Yes.
Hi. Good evening, everyone. I'm listening attentively. Thanks for the question. So San Jose just adopted a prohibition on flavored cigarettes, which contains the same exceptions that are in the state law. As Jay has noted, the state law is not yet in effect, but they mirrored the exceptions on a local level. They also did a few things to strengthen their program. They had sort of an artifact where adult-only stores were limited to youth 18 and under were prohibited, and so they moved that to 21. They have adult-only stores that are participating in the tobacco retailer permit program. So they already had a permit requirement in the city. They just didn't prohibit flavored tobacco products, and that's now a requirement of the permit, and adult-only retailers are also required to get a permit. And they also did some of these distance restrictions in terms of the number of feet from schools and the number of feet from other retailers.
Okay. Can I see the slide, please, that showed the cities that adopted the state's guidelines? You mentioned, because I was looking. Oh, there you go. That was it. Next
The
one.
table. Are you looking for the table?
No, this one. Because I was looking at Palo Alto, Cupertino, and Los Gatos. So there is I guess Leslie can answer this. So there's a slight difference from San Jose's ordinance. Is that what we're saying?
Yes. So the difference here is Palo Alto, Cupertino, and Los Gatos all have exactly the same ordinance that Santa Clara County unincorporated areas has adopted. That's part of the partnership. The County Department of Environmental Health will enforce the Milpitas ordinance if it's the exact same ordinance that the county adopted. San Jose administers their own tobacco retailer permit programs. They do not have that partnership with the county. So they have their own staff administering the permit, issuing the license, and going out and doing the monitoring.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you, Mayor Tran.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Chua. And next up, we have Councilmember Dominguez.
Thank you very much, Mayor. I just have a question. If we adopted the county, I'm not aware of any adult stores here in the city of Milpitas. I'm not too sure we have any, but would we be able to add the requirement that maybe sales move into an adult store, if that was maybe one I could find out if there is adult stores only in the city of Milpitas?
There are no adult stores, unless you're referring to a tobacco shop.
Do we have only tobacco shops in Milpitas?
We do have a number of tobacco shops in Milpitas.
So what I'm thinking is, would it be possible for us to adopt the Santa Clara County program and add that sales only happen in the tobacco stores? What's the age requirement for the tobacco stores? Is it 18 or 21?
Let's go to Jay Lee, or I think Leslie, was it?
Sure. Jay, feel free to talk over me if you don't want me to answer this question. The county's program, in order to have their partnership, the Milpitas ordinance has to be exactly the same. So if Milpitas chooses to allow the sale of flavored tobacco products at adult-only stores, it would need to administer its own tobacco retailer licensing program. The city of Palo Alto, as an example, used to exempt adult-only stores, and they went back and decided that they would require them to abide by the same restrictions in terms of prohibiting the sale of flavored tobacco products in order to partner with the county. And there are a number of public health reasons for that. I mean, there's data showing that youth, despite the fact that these products are illegal to them, youth are able to purchase them at stores, and the purchase rate at...
I'm so sorry. I'm going to have to pause you again. Vice Mayor, with all due respect, I can't hear staff. And so private conversations shouldn't be happening on the dais. I'm just trying to listen to the report. Thank you. Go ahead, staff. I apologize to everybody. I just can't hear. Thank you.
No problem. I think I was saying that there are public health reasons to prohibit the sale of flavored tobacco products in even adult-only stores. Youth are, in fact, able to buy these products, even though it's illegal for them. There's data showing that they are able to go into some of these stores and buy them. We could provide some more information on that if you're curious. And it's also just reducing the availability of the product within the community so that it's less available to youth in general.
Perfect. Thank you very much for that information.
Okay, great. I want to make a motion to postpone this item to a future date. I want to really follow what the state of California is doing up in Sacramento with this. I just don't want to make all these actions when the state will possibly supersede the decisions that we're making. And so I'm aware in chiming in with the vice mayor here that there may be some actions or developments happening in Sacramento with this. So I'm happy to take our time with this item, postpone it forward until we can have some more stability in our decision making with all the policy movement that's happening. Let's go to the vice mayor.
No, I was just going to second that. You made a motion, right?
Okay, and then we'll discuss this in the future. I see no further requests. We had a motion by myself, a second from the vice mayor to postpone this item into the future, and we'll go to the vote. Councilmember Achua.
I didn't hear anything about any movement in Sacramento from Jay or the consultant. That's my concern.
Oh, let's check in, Jay.
So the state and federal law is related to flavored tobacco, whereas we are asking for direction on a broader range of policies, including the location limits, the retailer permit to begin with, and things like that. So yeah, and we do. I guess, yeah, we can look into this, but if we were to delay it, because currently we do have county staff who are assisting us in helping write the ordinance and doing all this research. But at this moment, we're just trying to get direction on kind of which route to go.
Great, thank you very much. Let's go to public comment before we proceed. Let's go to public comment. We see folks on the Zoom. Stick with us. We're going to go in the chamber. Go ahead, Mr. Montemir. Come on up. And it's 1 minute.
Voltaire Montemir, Milpitas. For me, anyway, I work in a gasoline station. We check the qualified buyers. But anyway, my concern is if one too many, if many people are buying but not frequently, I think is not as bad as only one is buying and is using all. In other words, that's one issue. And then the one that's affected, the second-hand smoke, if we could avoid, because some people don't want a second-hand smoke. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Montemir, for the comment. We'll go to the Zoom. First up, we have Carol Baker with the virtual raise hand.
Hello, I am Carol Baker. I am the co-chair of the Tobacco Free Coalition of Santa Clara County and also a volunteer ambassador with the American Cancer Society Cancer Action Network. I want to thank you for considering this ordinance, and we do recommend that you match and partner with the Santa Clara County ordinance in order to avoid the necessity of spending more of the council's time closing loopholes and further protecting your citizens. And also, please be aware of the monster in the shadows, hookah. Every day, more of your youth is starting hookah use. Please don't allow it to become the next addictive tobacco product. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next up, we have Vanessa Marvin.
Hi, good evening. My name is Vanessa Marvin. I'm the other co-chair of the Tobacco Free Coalition of Santa Clara County. And Carol and I, who just spoke, are really proud of the work that the coalition has done in cities across Santa Clara County to pass policies just like the one we're discussing here today. And as was just mentioned, San Jose moved forward with the policy last week. So we're really excited that you guys are thinking about joining the other communities to move forward. I know none of us would want Milpitas to be the last city to move forward in the county and be known as the place, especially for youth, to buy tobacco. The reason we're so passionate about this issue is because we and our coalition partners hear from the community about this problem, especially about vaping and especially about flavored tobacco. We hear from youth about how hard this problem is to deal with. We hear from schools and teachers about kids vaping in classrooms and in school bathrooms that are unusable. We hear from doctors and pediatricians about trying to help addicted kids quit. Parents who are trying to figure out what to do with their youth who are addicted to vaping. And all of them come to us asking for help. And so we're coming to you guys and asking you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Appreciate you. Next up, we have Bob Gordon.
Yes, thank you. My name is Bob Gordon. I'm a member of the Tobacco Free Coalition of Santa Clara County. Wanted to say that tobacco companies bring a terrible toll of addiction and death to Milpitas residents. And the tobacco companies do it by attracting young people with fruity little cigars, menthol cigarettes, and other candy flavored products. And unfortunately, what happens is many of these deadly products find their ways from the smoke shops into middle and high schools. So this is no time to postpone. The time to act is now. It would be prudent to follow option number one, like Palo Alto, Cupertino, and Los Gatos, to partner with the county ordinance. And the tobacco industry would really like nothing more than to see city delay. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you very much. That's it with public comment here on the Zoom. Okay, one more here. Thomas Valori. And we'll unmute your microphone and we'll have, welcome.
I would strongly recommend following the recommendation of Ms. Baker. I don't see any other viable alternative.
Thank you very much. All right, that's it with public comment with the virtual raise hands. That's it. I'm glad we got public comment. I'll bring it back up to the dais here. We'll go to my colleagues. I guess I'll wrap it up with my final answer, which is to go with the format of the city of San Jose. If we're going to square this away tonight, I want to go with the format of the city of San Jose's policy action. We'll go to Councilmember Finn.
You know what? I'll second that if that's a motion.
It will be. Let's go down the dais here. Councilmember Dominguez.
there's a live motion. Are you asking me for a vote for the motion?
Oh, no, there's no motion. We're going to council member microphone request.
Oh, okay, because Councilmember Fan seconded it, so that's a live motion. I support it. I'm just wondering if you want me to vote or if it's comment.
Oh, no, that I didn't have a motion, so there's no second possible. We'll go to councilmember Chua.
Wait, I'll go ahead.
Okay. Well, your microphone, please. When you press the button, then it's off.
Thank you
So-
very much, Mayor, for that. In that case, I would like to motion that we move forward with the policies that the city of San Jose has made. I think it's really, really important for us to get this kind of stuff away from our kids. As a crime prevention specialist for a police department, I can't tell you how addicting this is getting. Not only that, our children are actually lacing this with other kinds of things that unfortunately, many things are actually causing death. So with that, I would like to place a motion on the floor to adopt a policy similar to the city of San Jose. In
I'll
order,
second that.
thank you.
Okay.
That is my motion.
I'm gonna go to the vice mayor here. There's still comment.
Thank you, Mayor. So I still wanted to, are we in discussion or?
Well, we were going down the line so everybody can have an equal opportunity to speak, but Councilmember Fan second actually didn't have his position in the order, so we want to give everybody an equal opportunity to speak. If you don't mind, Councilmember Dominguez.
Okay.
Okay. Well, Councilmember Fan's microphone was never activated for him to make a second, and that's against the Roberts rules.
He wasn't called on yet. But I just want to make a opportunity to be able to discuss this, since that's part of our due diligence. I also agree that to have local control. I would like to, the mayor, you mentioned that San Jose's model, and also Councilmember Dominguez also mentioned that. However, I don't know all the details because the devil is in the details. But overall, I would like the city to have control over this, and the fact that the fee for a TRP program administered by the county, it's anticipated to be what, $725 per retail. I mean, I'd rather have the local dollars stay here in the city. So I concur with the mayor about San Jose and the vice and
Thank you very much.
Councilmember Dominguez.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, let's go to city staff. Ashwini Kantak, our assistant city manager, please. I see your virtual raised hand.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to clarify if council is going in the direction of a separate local program, we would, before we bring the ordinance back to you, we would actually want to bring back any additional resource needs associated with kind of implementing such a program, because we did not present that information to you today. So I just wanted to clarify that, because it will require us, it'll take some time to put together a program and additional staffing resources needed to enforce.
Okay, great. Thank you very much for that information. Councilmember Chua.
I do also believe in local control. That's why I would rather have us implement the way San Jose did theirs. And there's no time for postponement. The time to act is now, because I heard this problem from former Planning Commissioner Demetrius, and it's a serious one, and we need to do an act now. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much. Okay, based on the microphone order, on the dais, we have a motion by Councilmember Dominguez, and I'll go ahead and second that. We'll go with the vote. Councilmember Chua.
Aye.
Councilmember Dominguez.
Aye.
Councilmember Fan.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Montano.
Aye.
And myself is an aye. That is item number 12. Thank you very much, everybody. I believe staff has the feedback and direction to bring it back at some point. Moving on to item number 13, let's do a time check. Item number 13, approved design proposal for the Montague pedestrian overcrossing, public art selection, and appropriation from the Public Art Fund to Public Arts Project CP 3489. And we'll welcome our Director of Recreation and Community Services, Renee Lawrenson. Take it away.
Good evening again, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and City Council. I'm just here to briefly introduce Tegan McLean, our Community Engagement and Inclusion Administrator. She's also our Arts Commission and Public Art Manager. So with that, I will turn over to Tegan to continue the presentation tonight. If staff could promote Tegan, that would be great. And while they do that, I will start the background. So if you remember, you, our City Council, approved our 2021 work plan for the Arts Commission, and that included a project for mural artwork for the Montague pedestrian overcrossing. In November of 2020, the Arts Commission did approve a design parameters limited to Bay Area artists with a recommendation of a commission of $15,000 for the project. The call for artists was released in December of 2020 and was publicized to Bay Area muralists. In January of 2021, the Arts Commission selected 4 artists and requested staff to conduct public outreach based on those artist proposals. Next slide. So staff conducted a virtual survey. We were in the midst of the pandemic pretty deep. That virtual survey was conducted in January and February. 91 people casted their votes and provided comments. The Arts Commission reviewed the feedback and the art proposals, but was not able to reach a consensus for recommendation to City Council, but it did forward on its top 3 designs to you. In April of 21, staff presented those top 3 designs and recommended the artist with the most public votes, which at the time was Amanda Lynn. City Council requested staff add a 4th artist and requested design revisions and conduct more in-person outreach to have a wider feedback and different designs that went out to the public that reflected more of the Milpitas community and history. Next slide. And if Tegan pops on, you can step in anytime. I'll just keep going.
I'm here now.
Here?
Thank you, Renee.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Good evening, everyone. Moving on to the analysis, all 4 of the finalists were invited to make revisions incorporating more elements of Milpitas history as City Council requested. One of those artists, Amanda Lynn, who had been the top vote getter earlier on, declined to make any revisions and withdrew from the process. However, the 3 remaining artists did submit revisions. We sought public feedback online again, and we conducted 13 in-person voting opportunities between May 26th and August 12th, including at the site, at the BART station, at numerous city events, and the city facilities that were open at the time, such as the Sports Center and the Senior Center. We had a total of 564 votes received. 444 of those were in-person votes and 120 were online. Next slide, please. The first design that I want to share with you is Adrian Littman's design. And what I'm going to do is show you sort of an unfolded version of the design so you can see kind of a large picture, and then we'll go on to some comments. So this is Adrian's design. Next slide, please. And as you can see, that is the poster board on the right side that we took out to the public. It shows the main design you just saw. It also shows design from different vantage points looking east, south, north, and west, and shows some highlights and up close items from the mural. Those in favor of Adrian's mural noted that it depicted city history and transition and the city's ability to cope with change and boost its economy. His supporters thought the images were clear and wouldn't be lost in the abstract, and that it told the story of the city. And they liked the idea that specific items are easily identifiable. Next slide, please. The next design by Orlu Arts. Next slide, please. The supporters of this design liked that it was so vibrant and happy. They felt that it was not too busy or cluttered. They really liked the fact that the Milpitas name stood out and that it felt welcoming. And it was mentioned that it would be a good photo spot for both locals and visitors. Next slide, please. And the final finalist is Ryan Peterson. His is the abstract design. Next slide, please. And his supporters felt that it was the most artistic of the designs that we had presented. They described it as pleasing to the eye and colorful, very contemporary, timely, and full of energy and inspiration. I think people liked the sentiment behind the design. We had remarks that it was gorgeous and viewable when driving by because it was such a large, vibrant design. Next slide, please. So I wanted to share with you the results of the voting.
Pause real quick here. I'm gonna do a point of personal privilege. Councilmember, can you please take your seat, or you're kind of distracting over my shoulder. I'm not sure what you're doing back there. It's awkward. Okay, point of personal privilege, please. Please, by your designated area, please. I would like to ask each elected official, just please keep near to your space as designated. A little distracting. We're trying to pay attention to the presentation. Carry on, Tegan. Thank you.
Thank you. So I wanted to share with you the results of the voting. Adrian Littman's, the first design that you saw, received 18 online votes and 67 in-person votes for a total of 85. That was 15% of the total votes cast. And we did ask those voting in person to color code their votes with dots, so we know who was residents and who were not residents. 13% of the residents casting votes voted for that one. The next one, Orlu Arts, received 58 online votes, 168 in-person votes for a total of 226. That was 40% of the votes cast and 38% of the resident votes cast. And then the third design, Ryan Peterson's, received 44 online votes, 209 in-person votes for a total of 253. That was 45% of the total votes cast and 49% of the resident votes cast. Next slide, please. Staff's recommendation is to approve the Ryan Peterson design proposal for the Montague pedestrian overcrossing and approve an appropriation of $15,000 from the Public Art Fund to the Public Art Project CP 3489. Next slide, please. And that's the end of the presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you very much, Tegan. We'll go to the discussion here if members would like to participate. All right, here we go. Can we go back to the study results or the poll?
Voting?
The voting, I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
I try not to use that word in this building too much. Let me move over my screen here. Yeah, it's a close one. I think Orlu and Ryan Peterson, that's let's see here. I think it's a close one. How are we calculating or tabulating the votes? There's non-residents that are making votes, is that?
Sure, we invited non-residents to vote as well. We color-coded the dots so that we would be aware of which ones were non-residents and which ones were residents. Mm-hmm. And because this artwork will be viewed by non-residents coming into our city, it's located at a gateway area. We felt that it was important to get a sense of how it was being received by non-residents as well as residents.
Okay, thank you for that. All right, let's see here. We'll go down the dais, but I'm going to have to vote for Orlu Arts. I know more than 226 people in this town. And I know there's a lot of people that care about our history here. And as discussed at a prior council meeting, that one, certainly one that really shines for our history. So let's next up, Vice Mayor Montano.
Thank you, Mayor. I do like the Milpa Legacy by artist Adrian Littman. That's the one that shows a lot of history. I mean, they have went down the line. They had Ford. They have Las Milpas, which are the little cornfields. Well, actually the corn. And then they have the BART/railroad. They have the orchards. They have the Ohlone engines. They have the ranchos. They have the Milpitas logo. The hillsides, which is really what really makes Milpitas. And of course the adobe. So what I like is the artist has put all these elements that make Milpitas. And then of course you have the BART, the high tech, and then the 01s on and off. And then the other one that I like is the artist Ryan Peterson, because that one is colorful and it just makes it pop. So right now my two choices are the Ryan Peterson and Adrian Littman. And the question that I have is, can you remind me where this art, is it going to be on the pillars, you know, the columns or the pilings that hold the bridge together?
Sure, it's actually on the area where you would approach to go up the stairs to cross over from the Edge Apartments over to the BART station. Each of the artists has proposed slightly different coverage areas. Ryan Peterson's artwork does include coverage of the pilings that are holding up the structure on the sidewalk there, whereas Adrian Littman's artwork is just proposed for the flat surfaces, and Orlu Arts is also just proposed for flat surfaces.
And the flat surfaces are still on the bottom where the pilings are at, right?
Right, correct, yes. They're the primary walls, the larger walls. Ryan's artwork extends a little bit above that and just covers a larger area.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, like I said, those two are the ones that I have an affinity towards, but I'll wait and see what my colleagues have to say. But I like both of those two. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vice Mayor. If we can get this PowerPoint slide with the Ryan Peterson, if I may, just let me see in our agenda report, it's black and white. It's hard to, but I know that one of the slides here, folks, if we pull up the Ryan Peterson proposal here, loving the murals, Vice Mayor. Okay, we'll wait for the person with the magic mouse, the one that can click to the Ryan Peterson artwork, please. Okay. Okay, great. All right. Well, I'll follow up on you, Vice Mayor. I'll go with the Ryan Peterson with you. I think the vibrant colors do match with the vibrant colors of the overcrossing. And next up, we have Councilmember Chua.
Thank you, Mayor Tran. I just have a quick question to Tegan. Tegan, will this murals have explanation right next to it?
Yes, they would have some artist statement affixed next to the murals so that people would be able to determine how the history is incorporated. Mm-hmm.
Perfect. So I'm going with Ryan Peterson because I think it's vibrant and it's colorful, and you really have to look at it and decipher exactly what it's trying to tell you, and write-up would be good. So I'm going with Ryan Peterson. Thank you. Good job, by the way, on your categorizing the non-residents and residents. I like that on your survey. Thank you, Mayor Tran.
Thank you very much. I love where this is going. Let's go to Councilmember Fan.
Thank you. I have a question. Can we legally display the Ford logo? Is there any risk?
I guess I would defer to the city attorney, but I think an historical piece that's representing the former Ford plant.
Right, but that's still the current logo
Right,
that
it
they
is.
use. So
It is.
Thank you, Councilmember Fan. Good question, and one that I don't know the answer to, but it's something that we're happy to look into. Ultimately, this is a recreation. It's not the actual logo. And so we think there's less risk, but it's something that we can look into, but I'm not worried about it at this point in time. And I think if you give direction and we do find an issue, we'd come back to you, but I don't expect that to happen, but we're happy to research it.
Sure, no worries. Well, if there aren't actually any issues, then I would be obliged to also be supportive of the Ryan Peterson design as it's reflected in the as reflected of the voting tallies.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Fan. I really appreciate your due diligence. Certainly, we do have Ford plastered all over Milpitas and so many different some city properties actually, and so I think we'll be fine. All right, if there's any further request, let's go to public comment. Did we get public comment for this yet? Any public comment here in the chamber? Yes. Come on up, Mr. Montemayor. What do you like?
I may follow the majority of yours. I just remembered the previous two though, they got you described about Milpitas, and this one is, of course, beauty is beauty. So thank you.
Beauty is beauty. Thank you very much. All right. Okay, I don't see any comments, virtual raised hands from the attendees. I'll look to the dais. If there's any requests, going once, going twice. We'll go to the vice mayor for the motion.
So I'd like to move to the city council to approve Brian Peterson's artwork. And I do like the oak tree right there, smack dab in the middle, because that was the original Milpitas with before the Spaniards brought the corn. So the oak trees is what the Native American Indians ate. Those little oak, the acorns rather. Anyway, I'm making that motion.
That's right. I'll go ahead and second that. No, I got a second by Councilmember Fan. Councilmember
It's okay.
Fan
You got it.
No,
you got it.
No, you already. I'm gonna go ahead and preside over this meeting. We have a second by Councilmember Fan, and we'll go to the vote. Councilmember Chua.
Aye.
Councilmember Dominguez.
Aye.
Councilmember Fan.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Montano. Let me get your microphone here 1 second.
Aye, and I want to make a clarification. It wasn't the Spaniards that brought the corn. It was the Mexicans that had the ranchos here. So that just a clarification.
It's a long history. Thank you very much, and we love our history. We value our history. And I'll go ahead and vote aye. So thank you, Tegan, for all your work on this. I know it kind of bounced back to you, and you bounced it back, and the final outcome is really a result of your hard work, Tegan. Thank you so much, and all the folks over at the Arts Commission. Have a great night. Okay, great. All right, we're still going here. We got one more agenda item. Oh. And we have item number 14, adopt resolution marking findings and determinations under Assembly Bill 361 for the continuation of virtual meetings. I just wanted to check in here with our city attorney. I recently watched the school board meeting, and they had sort of this item on their agenda, and they voted a certain way on it. And I wanted just to check in. I really was kind of inspired by our school board, just excellent elected officials over there. And, I wanted to not just put it on consent, but have a discussion about it, possibly, think otherwise. But I did want to check in with our city attorney here, Christopher Diaz, for the presentation.
Thank you, Mayor. City Council, Christopher Diaz, your city attorney, here to present item number 14, which is the Assembly Bill 361, which was newly enacted, which does allow us the option of adopting a resolution to continue with the virtual meetings. So just an overview of what I'll cover as part of this presentation, and it is short, so I'll keep it brief. I do want to cover the background and kind of the current status of the governor's executive orders, which has allowed us to obviously be safe and meet remotely during the heightened state of the pandemic. I also want to talk about Assembly Bill 361, which was recently enacted by the state legislature and signed by the governor about 2 weeks ago. And then from there, I'll turn it over to our city manager, management team to basically talk about the staff recommendation. Next slide, please. So I think we all remember 18 months ago, and I remember the night before March 17th, when I did receive a call from a good friend of mine, just indicating that there was an expectation that on Monday, all the health officers in the Bay Area would essentially be shutting down the Bay Area and issuing the shelter-in-place order. And that occurred on March 17th of 2020, as we all know. On that same day, Governor Newsom did acknowledge the fact that Bay Area health officers around the state were essentially asking for people to remain at home to protect people from COVID-19, and issued, at that time, he did issue Executive Order N29-20, suspending certain teleconferencing provisions in the Brown Act. Council is well aware that we can teleconference currently under the Brown Act, but what the governor did by issuing the executive order was suspend 4 certain requirements that exist within the Brown Act today. Next slide, please. So existing law, prior law, however we want to look at this, but the Brown Act does acknowledge today and prior to the pandemic that council members could essentially call in to a meeting remotely and participate in the meeting fully from their remote location. Now, what's required under the Brown Act for that to happen is that the meeting agenda, so our city council agenda, would need to identify all of the locations that a council member may be calling in from. So normally we'd have the city hall location, obviously pre-pandemic, and then if a council member was calling in, let's say from vacation, from a hotel, they'd also have to list that hotel location that they were calling in from. In addition to that requirement, there's also the requirement that the teleconference location be publicly accessible and that an agenda be posted at that teleconference location while a council member is calling into the meeting. Now, oftentimes I would recommend to city council members, if they were on vacation, obviously to sit in a hotel lobby because that is the most accessible, publicly accessible location within a hotel, not to be doing the meeting from your hotel room because obviously we know some hotels do lock upper floors to the public. So normally I would recommend that a council member attend the meeting if they are calling in remotely by sitting in the lobby and posting an agenda at their location. It looks a little odd to the standard member of the public, but that is a Brown Act requirement. And then the final requirement is that we need to have a quorum of the council within the jurisdiction. Next slide, please. So by issuing Executive Order N29-20, the governor waived those 4 requirements. So there's no longer a requirement, obviously, if we're making use of the executive order to identify the teleconference locations on the agenda. In other words, all of you could be at home safely during the height of the pandemic and not have to identify your home location on the agenda. In addition, there's no need to post an agenda at the teleconference location, so you wouldn't be mandated to post an agenda at your home. In addition to that, the teleconference location can be closed private, obviously to protect you from other individuals with at the heightened stage of the pandemic. And then finally, again, no need for a quorum to be within the city. Next slide, please. Now, on June 11th of 2021, with the state reopening, the governor did issue a new executive order, N8-21, basically continuing the provisions that were waived in his original executive order, but also indicating that that executive order would expire on its own terms on September 30th of this year. The governor on September 20th also clarified that with AB 361 being essentially adopted by the state legislature, signed by the governor himself, he provided some clarity just to indicate that if you are meeting during the month of September, make use of the executive order. And if you're meeting during the month of October moving forward, use AB 361. Next slide, please. Now, AB 361 really came about because of the uncertainty associated with the recall election. I think there was a lot of questions whether the governor would actually be recalled at the election that transpired last month. Because of that risk, the governor may have been less inclined to issue an extension of his executive order. In light of that, the state legislature took on the remote or virtual meeting provisions and basically adopted and passed through AB 361. Next slide, please. Now, AB 361 continues the waiver of those 4 teleconferencing provisions that we discussed, but it also requires certain findings to be met and other requirements to be met as part of the state legislation. So in order to meet under AB Assembly Bill 361, there needs to be a state of emergency. Now, we know that the governor has declared a state of emergency associated with COVID-19, and he has not lifted that state of emergency as of yet. There is some speculation that he may lift that state of emergency by the end of this year. In addition to there being a current state of emergency, 2 additional requirements must be shown. And it's one or the other. But the first would be that state or local officials have imposed or are recommending social distancing measures, or the city council would have to make an affirmative finding that as a result of the emergency, meeting in person would present imminent risks to the health or safety of attendees. Now, keep in mind, Assembly Bill 361 is meant to be an option, I think, for legislative bodies, not just during the COVID-19 pandemic, but also in other situations where there is a state of emergency declared by the governor. Next slide, please. Now, the additional requirement under Assembly Bill 361 is that in addition to essentially making those first findings, if you make use of the Assembly Bill and want to meet remotely, you also need to re-up those findings every 30 days. Now, the requirements are that you reconsider the circumstances of the state of emergency. If it's still in place, then that is enough. If it has been essentially expired by the governor or taken away by the governor, then that would be a factor weighing against the ability for the city to make the findings. And in addition to that, you'd also have to make the findings that we just discussed, that either one of the two, that there is a state of emergency that continues to directly impact the ability of the members to meet safely in person, or that state or local officials continue to impose or recommend measures to promote social distancing. Next slide, please. Now, there's a few other requirements that I just wanted to note with the use of AB 361. The first is public comment. I think the City Council is well aware that last summer there was definitely a lot of legal challenges that arose during the height of the pandemic, during the use of Zoom technology. And in that instance, there were some legislative bodies, some agencies that were not taking comment in real time. What they were doing was basically setting a limit prior to the council meeting or other legislative body meeting where public comments had to be submitted in writing and then read into the record. Obviously, we did some of that last year during the Zoom format, but a lot of agencies did take criticism for that. And then the ACLU and other public interest groups started to send letters to various agencies indicating that taking a public comment only by email in advance of the meeting violates the Brown Act. Now, there was no clarity within the governor's executive order or existing Brown Act to provide a clear answer on that issue, but AB 361 now makes it abundantly clear that if you're going to make use of a virtual format, you need to take public comments in real time. Now, what that means is that on the Zoom platform, as we have done this evening, we'd want to take public comment, allow someone to come on and basically make their comment through audio means. In addition to that, we'd want to ensure that the public comment period is open for a reasonable amount of time. The City Council and the Mayor does a very good job of this to make sure that obviously everyone has had a chance to comment. And so my take on this first prong is that we are fully in compliance today. The second requirement is that if there is a technology disruption, in other words, if we have an issue where one council member cannot be heard, or we're having concerns that the public may not be able to hear or see the meeting in action, then AB 361 mandates that we not take any formal action during that disruption, that we wait for the technology to be essentially fixed, that the public can re-access the meeting. And then once we are basically ensured that the technology is working properly, the council is free to take action, formal action during that time period. Next slide, please. Now, a little bit about the resolution that's before you. So a couple of things to think about. It does make the findings that there is a current state of emergency, and it also points to an existing regulation issued by the state of California with regard to employment and employers, and that is Cal OSHA Regulation 3205. That regulation does acknowledge that COVID does spread when individuals are within 6 feet of each other. There is the risk of that. It also identifies a close contact as anyone within 6 feet that you've been within 6 feet of. And therefore, there is the general kind of recommendation within that regulation that in order to prevent COVID, you'd want to keep a good distance within the workplace. Now, the recommendation tonight is to have you adopt the resolution, and there's a good legal reason for that. That's because our meeting tonight does involve the use of AB 361. And so I would want to make it clear to the public and clear in the record that we have adopted the resolution for purposes of tonight's meeting. And keep in mind that the resolution itself provides an option for the city council as well as all the other legislative bodies that exist at the city to use AB 361, but it is not a requirement. Obviously, council can provide other direction if they so desire. But with that, there are some policy considerations that the council may want to think about. They are mentioned in the staff report, just in terms of other commissions, other committees that meet and may not have access to the hybrid format that the city council has. I do want to note that we do have 4 council members today in person. And so the benefits that come along with AB 361 may not be necessary for the city council, but I do want you to think about those other committees and commissions. And with that, I'll turn it over to our Assistant City Manager, Ashwini Kantak. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Next slide, please. So here's some policy considerations for council to take into consideration as you deliberate your actions regarding this item. So as Chris mentioned, in addition to the city council, we obviously have several other bodies that require public meetings. So we have 5 council subcommittees, 12 city commissions, 2 task forces, and then 1 Measure F oversight committee. And all of these bodies are currently meeting virtually. Social distancing, as Chris noted, continues to be recommended in indoor settings, and distancing as well as physical controls are not really feasible to enable these other public meetings to be in person. We don't have the kind of space to allow for that. And then the venues themselves are not even set up for hybrid meetings. That would require substantial technology improvements as well as additional staffing resources. And so at this point, we are recommending virtual meetings until COVID-19 transmission is no longer a concern and social distancing is not being recommended. And obviously, there's the other condition of the state of emergency that would have to be considered. And next slide, please.
Okay.
And the resolution before you today is to make findings and determinations under this bill for the continuation of virtual meetings.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, our City Attorney Christopher Diaz and our Assistant City Manager Ashwini Kantak. Once again, our City Attorney Christopher Diaz and our Assistant City Manager Ashwini Kantak. I want to move to adopt this resolution. I know the comfort, safety, and wellness of my colleagues on the council, as well as our city staff and commissioners, whomever. If you're comfortable at home, you feel safe at home, I have no questions. I want to let you know that I'm going to move to adopt this resolution to support you and your well-being. And I want to do a time check here. Thanks a lot, Vice Mayor Montano.
Is this an action item?
What?
So with that, I'll second that if it is.
Okay, yeah, great. Let's go with comments here. Councilmember Chua.
Aye.
Okay, any requests for comment?
Mayor Tran, we do have one hand raised for public comment. Just wanted to
Yes, we gotta go to public comment here. Okay, all right, let's go to Zoom. We have John Ag. Yeah, you're up next. We're gonna wait for Commissioner Ag first. Commissioner Ag. With the virtual raised hand from the Arts Commission, the chair, John Ag, please.
There we go. Mayor Tran, council members, I did notice that 2 of the earlier council meetings recently, there has been from the council members who were not actually in intent, who were virtual, that there was interference and it wasn't possible to hear completely what they were saying or what their comments were. So how would that affect the decisions that were being made that evening?
Yeah, I understand what you're talking about. I know Councilmember Fan has a really nice setup with what you just look at him. You know, he's looking good. Great setup there. You know, and I would just recommend with good faith to each one of my colleagues to have their video for the benefit of our public, as well as a strong, supported and tested broadband Wi-Fi connection. It is imperative for our public and our viewers who really love watching our meetings. Actually, you wait till you hear some of the feedback out there. It's amazing. But we'll have our information systems director Daniel. Hey, Daniel, great job, by the way. We'll have him connect with any council member that may not have the strongest signal. Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Ag. All right, Mr. Montemayor, you coming up? Come on.
Okay, time check. Yeah, great presentation. Like government is for the people and by the people, and other one for the people. So in other words, even though it's virtual, we always consider public comments. Thank you. And we cannot, no action on technical disruption. So I know we will still that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, we got a motion to adopt the resolution. Who was that by? Was it? Okay, let's go. Hold on. Well, not yet. Hold on. Councilmember Chua, come on now. Councilmember Chua, we're having fun tonight. I'm having a blast tonight. All right, let's go Vice Mayor Montano.
Well, I was going to ask Chris a question, but I'll just ask him offline. But for the sake of ending this meeting, I will say aye as well.
Okay. Well, okay. Did we get everybody's vote? I just want to make sure that wasn't very clean. So we have a motion by the Vice Mayor, and I have a second from me, and then we went down the line. It was Councilmember Chua with the aye. Definitely got the aye from Councilmember Chua. And then Councilmember Dominguez.
Aye.
Councilmember Fan.
Aye.
Next up, Vice Mayor Montano. I'm looking for the button here. Go ahead, press that button. Okay.
So aye.
And myself is an aye. So that item, motion to adopt the resolution carries. The motion carries and will be approved. Okay, great. Yeah. Hey, what a great meeting tonight here in Milpitas. I was hoping that we could end the meeting at a record time, but I really had a fun night with everybody. I want to thank our city staff, our city manager, our city attorney, Christopher Diaz. I want to thank all the directors for being with us tonight. Let's give a shout out to Daniel from Information IT. It's great having you. You've been doing an excellent job on the fly, and you are our director now, and I really feel it tonight. And so we'll be out there on Friday for Chief Hernandez big day. All right, this meeting's adjourned.